Chapter 168. All the fairies knew that they wouldn't be part of the 10 Prides, because that was the target of the 10 Glamorous Sisters. The 10 Glamorous Fairies were the most outstanding women in all aspects among the 100 fairies. They were called the 10 Glamorous Fairies. Their position among the 100 fairies was like the 10 Prides among the other heaven's Prides. They had absolute strength that surpassed the other fairies. Whether it was appearance, music, chess, calligraphy, painting, or cultivation talent, the 10 Glamorous Fairies were far superior. Because of this, the 10 Prides naturally became the target of the 10 Glamorous Fairies. Just as the fairies were talking about the heavenly dawn prides gathering in the depths of the Thousand Island Lake, there were 10 small islands that were closely connected. The 10 islands weren't big, and they were very close to each other. The furthest 2 islands were only 4 kilometers away, and the closest one was only a few hundred meters away. On each island, there was a beautiful wooden house. Flowers were everywhere on the islands, and the fragrance was pleasant. These 10 islands were where the legendary 10 Glamorous Fairies lived. Other than the people of the 100 Immortals' house, it was said that no one had seen the 10 Glamorous Fairies' true appearance. Currently, on the 10 islands, the 10 Glamorous Fairies were doing their own things. Behind them, there were 2 maids. Although they were doing different things, the 10 Glamorous Fairies were also thinking about the upcoming Heavenly Dawn Prides gathering. However, their target wasn't the top Heaven's Prides or Heaven's Prides, but the 10 Prides. "Sister, who do you like the most among the 10 Prides?" One of the maids behind the 10 Glamorous Fairies asked softly as she tended to the plants. Hearing the maidservant's question, the beautiful woman with a veil on her face who was walking at the front smiled and said, "Of the top 10 geniuses, Snow Fairy Ouyang Roshue is a woman and is not in consideration. As for the other 9, I am most interested in Xiao Chun and Gudawuya." One of the 10 Glamorous Fairies was most interested in Xiao Chun and Gudawuya. As for the other 10 Glamorous Fairies, they already had their own targets. Other than Ouyang Roshue, the other 9 had more or less won the hearts of the 10 Glamorous Fairies. However, what no one expected was that Xiao Chun actually won the hearts of 5 of the 10 glamorous girls. With such a high ratio, even Gudawuya admitted defeat. It could be seen how great Xiao Chun's charm was. As for why Xiao Chun was able to win the hearts of as many as 10 Glamorous Fairies, you'll understand after listening to the following. His name is Xiao Chun, and his nickname is Demon Sword. He rose to prominence in the Eastern Sun region. The moment he appeared, he was like a hidden dragon emerging from the abyss. He was unstoppable. He suppressed the 4 great hidden dragons and the 4 great leaders of the Eastern Sun region with his sword. After that, he suppressed the 4 great geniuses in the 100 Spirits graveyard and obtained the title of King of Geniuses. He disappeared for several months. After some investigation, it was suspected that he had made his way through the Allbeast mountain range. After arriving in the divine region of the Midlands, he joined 9 Firmaments Palace's Heavenly Sword Peak. He is now 9 Firmaments Palace's only King of Prides. 1 month ago, he joined forces with Shui Woodwood in the Green Waves Empire to start the War of Prides. Overall evaluation, a monster of the sword. His white robe flutters in the wind. His appearance is valiant and his temperament is otherworldly. An outstanding talent of the present age. That was the 100 Immortals Tower's evaluation of Xiao Chun. Of course, it wasn't just Xiao Chun. The other 10 great geniuses also had their own evaluations. Everything that had happened since their birth was recorded in a concise and comprehensive manner. Furthermore, the 100 Immortals Tower's Tower Lord also gave a comprehensive evaluation. This was also to allow the 10 Glamorous Fairies to better understand the 10 great geniuses. Through the brief introduction, the 10 Glamorous Fairies all developed a strong interest in Xiao Chun. It was hard to say who was the strongest among the 10 great geniuses. Up until now, there had never been a clear victor between the 10 great geniuses. However, if they were to talk about who had the most charisma among the 10 great geniuses, it would undoubtedly be Xiao Chun, followed by Gudawuya, and then Huang Fueo. Of course, everything was based on the brief introduction. As for the 10 Glamorous Fairies' true choice, they would probably have to wait until the heavenly stellar geniuses gathering to determine it. Since they could become the 10 great geniuses, none of them were ordinary characters. Any great geniuses would definitely attract women. Take Mahi, for example. It was believed that any woman who came into contact with him would involuntarily fall in love with him. This was the charm of a great geniuses. Unaware that the 100 Immortals Tower had already begun secretly anticipating the heavenly stellar geniuses gathering, Xiao Chun was still diligently cultivating in 9 Firmaments Palace. There was still some time before the heavenly stellar geniuses gathering, so Xiao Chun wasn't in a hurry. After successfully breaking through to the Earth Mirror Realm, Xiao Chun placed the focus of his cultivation on the Tai Sword Finger. Back when he was still at the profound Yuan Great Circle, he was unable to cultivate the Tai Sword Finger. However, now that he had broken through to the Earth Mirror Realm, his spiritual energy had been greatly enhanced. Be it in terms of quantity or quality, it was far superior to when he was at the profound Yuan stage. Thus, the current Xiao Chun had met the requirements to cultivate the Tai Sword Finger. As the Tai Sword Finger was comparable to a high-grade Earth-tier martial skill, it was naturally very difficult to cultivate. Thus, even after several days of arduous cultivation, Xiao Chun was still unable to successfully cultivate it. Clearly, cultivating an Earth-tier martial skill was not something that could be done within a short period of time. However, before the Heavenly Stellar Geniuses gathering began, Xiao Chun still hoped that he could cultivate the Tai Sword Finger to the Earth Mirror Realm at the very least. That way, his combat power would also increase. Cultivating diligently. On an uninhabited mountain beside Heavenly Sword Peak, Xiao Chun was continuously cultivating the Tai Sword Finger. This was already the 5th day since he arrived. He had already lost count of how many times he had failed to execute the Tai Sword Finger technique, but no matter how hard he tried, he was still unable to succeed. Calming his mind, Xiao Chun pondered over the matter. Despite the repeated failures, Xiao Chun did not feel discouraged. On the contrary, it only served to ignite Xiao Chun's fighting spirit. After an entire night of meditating, Xiao Chun adjusted his condition to its peak. When dawn arrived, Xiao Chun slowly opened his eyes and tapped his finger lightly in front of him. The instant Xiao Chun's finger landed, a surge of spiritual energy could be seen. In an instant, a sword ray that was several dozen meters thick flashed across the air and struck a mountain in the distance. Under the might of his finger, the mountain shook violently, causing rocks to fall and trees to collapse. The essence of the Tai Sword Finger lay in its violent strength. There was no technique to it at all. It simply relied on brute force to suppress the opponent. Just like Jian Yi, it had no edge, yet was difficult to block. This was the essence of the Tai Sword Finger. I've finally succeeded. Looking at the incomparably thick sword ray, Xiao Chun couldn't help but reveal a smile on his face. Even though he had only reached the Earth Mirror Realm, he didn't let his days of arduous cultivation go to waste. Chapter 169. After successfully cultivating the Tai Sword Finger, he spent another 3 days to completely stabilize it. At the same time, there were only a few days left before the Heavenly Star Pride King Assembly. Standing on the mountain peak, the other 9 Cloud Palace Heavens Prides had already set off for the Thousand Island Lake. Calculating the time, it was about time for him to set off as well. After leaving the uninhabited mountain peak and returning to the dustless residence, Xiao Chun told Qin Shuru that he would set off for the Thousand Island Lake tomorrow. Qin Shuru nodded in response to Xiao Chun's decision. In fact, she was also filled with anticipation for the upcoming Heavenly Star Pride King Assembly. Of course, Qin Shuru's anticipation was because he wanted to see Xiao Chun shine in that gathering of Heaven's Prides. As Xiao Chun's wife, she naturally hoped that her husband would be a mighty lord standing proudly in the world. After a night of silence, when Xiao Chun exited from his cultivation early the next morning, Qin Shuru had already made all the necessary preparations. Qin Shuru had also finished instructing Qin Yao and Qin Luo. He walked out of the dustless residence with Qin Shuru. Before leaving, he naturally had to bid farewell to Tsang Xian and Dao Master Danyan. First, he went to Dao Master Danyan's residence. Knowing that Xiao Chan was going to participate in the Heavenly Star Pride King Assembly, Dao Master Danyan casually tossed a bottle of pills to Xiao Chun. It was a bottle of healing pills of the heaven grade. As long as it wasn't a fatal injury, one pill would be enough to stabilize the injury. He didn't stand on ceremony with Dao Master Danyan and directly accepted the bottle of healing pills. Dao Master Danyan then said drunkenly, "Kid, when you go to the Thousand Island Lake, remember to take care of my girl. If anything happens to her, I'll skin you alive." Xiao Chun already knew that Ouyang Roshue, the king of pride of the Dan Valley, was the daughter of Dao Master Danyan. Hearing this, Xiao Chun nodded helplessly. He thought that they were all kings of pride, who would take care of who. Moreover, he did not believe that Ouyang Roshue would be bullied to the Thousand Island Lake. After bidding farewell to Dao Master Danyan, Xiao Chun went to the main hall of the Heavenly Sword Peak to bid farewell to Tsang Xian and the others. After exhorting Xiao Chun to be careful, Tsang Xian personally prepared a golden-winged eagle for Xiao Chun. Riding the golden-winged eagle, Xiao Chun and Qin Shru soared into the sky and soon disappeared into the horizon, rushing towards the Thousand Island Lake. Xiao Chun set off on the golden-winged giant eagle. At the same time, the other 10 chosen kings were also making their way to the Thousand Island Lake. In the Mu clan, Mu he left alone on the Mu clan's flying beast. In the Heavenly Secrets Hall, Guduya brought his junior sister, who was also his wife, and also left the Heavenly Secrets Hall, heading towards the Thousand Island Lake. As if they had discussed it beforehand, the 10 chosen kings did not travel with their respective factions' heaven prides, but headed towards the Thousand Island Lake alone. As the 10 chosen kings set off, more and more people gathered around the Thousand Island Lake. Everyone wanted to personally witness the first gathering of the world's heaven prides. It was simply overcrowded, especially for the younger generation of cultivators. To them, heaven prides were the goal of their hard work. Everyone worked hard to become a heaven pride. As for becoming a king of pride, it was too difficult. After all, there were only 10 kings of pride in the entire heavenly Chun continent. It was easier said than done to reach the throne. Countless people were waiting for the gathering to begin. At the same time, the 100 Immortals House also provided full support for the gathering. It was rumored that the house master of the 100 Immortals House personally took action and forcefully merged the small islands in the Thousand Island Lake together. Now, a huge island appeared in the center of the Thousand Island Lake. Around this island, there were 10 smaller islands. In the center was the largest island. On this island, there were already over 100 mahogany tables and chairs. Clearly, this island was prepared for the heaven prides. As for the 10 smaller islands surrounding this island, there were no tables or chairs. However, at the center of each island, there was a magnificent pavilion. That's right, using the word magnificent to describe a pavilion was not an exaggeration. Rather, it was because the pavilions on these 10 islands were truly too exaggerated. They were unimaginably large, and their designs were grand and magnificent. Without a doubt, these 10 islands belonged to the 10 great prides. At this moment, these 10 islands were named after the 10 great prides. For example, the island that belonged to Xiao Chun was named Demon Sword Island. Time slowly passed, and the day of the gathering finally arrived. Early in the morning, countless people had already gathered at the edge of the Thousand Island Lake. Some people with extraordinary status had their own seats, while some ordinary warriors could only squeeze and stand together. However, even so, the crowd's enthusiasm did not decrease at all. Everyone was looking forward to the arrival of the various heaven prides. Soon, flying demonic beasts flew over from the horizon. One by one, the heaven prides finally appeared. Everything seemed to have been rehearsed. The first batch that appeared was naturally the weakest of the top heaven prides. They were also the group with the largest number of people. There were as many as 60 to 70 of them. After a preliminary count, the number of heaven prides in the entire heavenly Qin continent, excluding the 10 great prides, should be around 110. As for the top heaven prides, there were 70 of them. As for the top heaven prides, there were 40 of them. With the appearance of the top geniuses, they naturally stepped onto the gigantic island in the middle. As for the other 10 islands beside it, they did not dare to touch them no matter what. Those islands belonged to the top 10 geniuses, and they did not have the right to enjoy them. After the top geniuses appeared and landed on the island, they each found their own seats. Those who were familiar with each other would sit together. However, it wasn't hard to see that the top geniuses had chosen the seats towards the back. That was because the seats towards the front belonged to the top geniuses. They wouldn't be able to get a share of those seats. Following the appearance of the top heaven prides, the atmosphere at the edge of the Thousand Island Lake was completely ignited. Many people were loudly discussing the names of the top heaven prides and the forces they belonged to. There were even people who were constantly bragging about the combat strength of the top heaven prides. Those who could become heaven's prides naturally couldn't be mediocre. Even the weakest top heaven's prides would more or less have some battle records that they could take out. These battle records were often the standard by which the 7 overlord forces judged a heaven's pride. Basically, all the top heaven prides had battle records that allowed them to kill opponents of a higher level. This could be said to be a requirement to become a heaven pride. If they could not kill opponents of a higher level, how could they be called a heaven prides? Everyone was discussing about these top-tier geniuses. But just at this moment, many of them shouted out in unison, "Hurry up and look! The supreme geniuses are here." Chapter 170. Look, the peerless geniuses are here. Following the appearance of the top geniuses, the peerless geniuses also appeared on the horizon from different directions. It had to be said that the geniuses were divided into 3 classes, and the gap between each class was insurmountable. Compared to the top geniuses, the peerless geniuses were much stronger in terms of aura, battle prowess, and the feeling they gave others. The number of peerless geniuses was less than half of the top geniuses. There were only about 40 of them, but their aura was completely incomparable to the top geniuses from before. One after another, the peerless geniuses landed on the gigantic island in the center. As soon as they landed, the peerless geniuses unconsciously looked towards the 10 islands that symbolized the position of the king. Their eyes involuntarily flashed with a hint of fervor. However, this fervor only lasted for a brief moment. Although they were existences that were second only to the top 10 geniuses, after the previous round of battle, they already knew that in front of the top 10 geniuses, they were just a bunch of clay chickens and pottery dogs. Just like what Huangfu Ao had said in the invitation to the top geniuses were no match for the top geniuses at the same cultivation level. Now that the top 10 geniuses had all broken through to the Earth Mirror Realm, the gap between their cultivation levels was gradually widening. Therefore, the top geniuses could only bow their heads and submit to the top 10 geniuses. The top 10 geniuses were like a lightning pool that they couldn't surpass. The top geniuses and peerless geniuses had all arrived, leaving only the top 10 geniuses. However, the 100 fairies from the 10,000 Immortals house arrived first. Of course, this didn't include the 10 alluring fairies. Today, their only goal was the top 10 geniuses. If the top 10 geniuses didn't show up, they naturally wouldn't show up either. One after another, emerald green skylarks carried the celestial maidens to the most important island. As the celestial maidens appeared, the people on the shore were all dumbfounded. They shook their heads and sighed in amazement. Are these the fairies from the 100 Immortals house? They are indeed peerless beauties. Yeah. If I could spend a night with these fairies, I wouldn't hesitate to lose all my cultivation. They were indeed incomparably beautiful, especially the aura these fairies exuded. After being trained by the 100 Immortals house since young, they weren't any weaker than the young ladies from the major clans. Just a single glance was enough to make any man unable to resist. There were even people who were willing to give up their cultivation just to spend a night with these fairies. From this, one could see that the fairies from the 100 Immortals house were truly worthy of their reputation. Forget it, the 100 fairies from the 100 Immortals house have yet to receive a guest. In front of the other geniuses, you want to snatch a woman? Are you courting death? Hearing the discussions of the crowd, someone naturally scolded. They all knew that everyone was just a spectator today. The only ones who could truly enjoy the feast of these beautiful fairies were the Sky Prides on the central island. She had a clear view of the situation, and that was indeed the case. After the 100 celestial maidens appeared, they first sized up the geniuses present. Then, according to their individual choices, the 100 celestial maidens successively chose the geniuses they liked. The supreme geniuses were naturally the first choice, followed by the peak-level geniuses. One by one, the fairies walked to the side of the geniuses they admired and started to pour wine for them. With fairies accompanying them, the geniuses naturally felt relaxed and happy. All of them had smiles on their faces as they sighed in their hearts. This 100 Immortals' house was truly a paradise on earth. Just these fairies alone were enough to make one forget to leave. Heroes love beauties. Beauties are compatible with heroes. This was a logic that would never change. Very swiftly, a scene like this appeared on the central island. Beside each of the geniuses, there was a fairy serving them. She had a smile on her face, and her actions were graceful. Every action of the fairies caused the geniuses to feel extremely satisfied. And just when the geniuses were enjoying the gentleness of the fairies, a bestial roar rang out from the horizon. Everyone inclined their heads only to see a gigantic white-winged tiger flying over from the horizon. The huge tiger had a pair of wings on its back. Its body was snow-white, and its killing intent was threatening. On the back of the tiger, there was a young man in a cyan robe. He held a flute in his hand and put it behind his back. He was looking down at the Thousand Island Lake calmly. "It's here." Upon witnessing the emergence of the white-winged tiger, one of the geniuses blurted out. That's right, the person who had arrived was naturally one of the 10 great prodigies. As the white-winged tiger approached, someone quickly recognized this prodigy. It was Gumu, who was known as serene. He hadn't joined any influential group. According to legends, his teacher was also a ruler, but he was a hermit and didn't care about worldly affairs. Celestial music Gumu, ancient barbarian king Huanggu, and godly fist Linua didn't belong to any influential group, but they all had a ruler's teacher. The rulers of the continent of the 9 clouds also knew who those 3 rulers were, but because of their personalities, they didn't care much about the affairs of the Tiantian continent. Therefore, they weren't as famous as the rulers of the 7 influential groups. They were considered extremely strong cultivators. Surprisingly, the first one to show up was Xian Gumu. Gumu was standing on the white-winged tiger's back and whispering to himself, "Am I early?" Glancing at the 10 proud monarch islands, Gumu felt helpless when he realized that none of the proud monarchs had arrived. At the same time, when Gumu arrived above the Thousand Island Lake, his proud monarch island emitted a white glow, reminding him that this was his proud monarch island. Flying towards his own Pride King Island, Gumu leaped down lightly from the white-winged tiger and landed on the Divine Music Island. At the same time, all the geniuses on the central main island stood up and bowed. "Greetings, Divine Music Pride King. You're all too polite. No need to be so polite. I'll wait for the others," said Gumu with a smile. Then, he turned around and walked toward the pavilion. He didn't want to interact with the geniuses too much. In Gumu's eyes, he was only interested in the other geniuses. Even though they were given the cold shoulder, none of the King of Prides dared to complain. As for the 100 fairies beside them, they all felt admiration for Gumu. However, it was a pity that the King of Prides did not belong to them. That was the goal of Big Sister Shurian. After Xian Gumu showed up, another beast roar spread in the air. A gigantic celestial crane descended from the sky. A young woman in a white dress was standing on it. She was the king of geniuses from the celestial Dan Valley, Ouyang Roshui. Ouyang Roshui was the second one to arrive. When Gumu saw her, he smiled and stood up. He smiled at her and said, "I've heard so much about you, Fairy Shui. Now that I've met you, you're really worthy of your title." Chapter 171. I have also heard of Xian Yin's name. Ouyang Roshui bowed slightly and said in an indifferent tone after hearing Gumu's words. As her voice sounded, Ouyang Roshue's Pride King Island emitted a white light. At the same time, laughter rang out. Soon after, a fire-feather eagle flew over from the horizon. A young man in black clothes stood on it. "Ah, Siningumu, Snow Fairy Ouyang Roshue. I've long heard of your names." The young man's voice rang out before he had even arrived. Ouyang Roshue and Gumu both looked towards the young man. Gumu even opened his mouth to reply. Godly Fist Lin Nuo. Haha, this is getting more and more interesting. The three great Pride Kings had appeared one after another. This was the first time they had met, but the three of them did not feel the slightest bit of unfamiliarity. It was as if they were old friends who had known each other for a long time. It was not difficult to hear the thick battle intent hidden in their hearts from their ordinary conversation. After a simple exchange of greetings, the three of them arrived at their respective Pride King Islands. Only now did the geniuses on the central main island find an opportunity to speak. They greeted Ouyang Roshue and Lin Nuo, who had just appeared. "Greetings, Snow Fairy, greetings, Godly Fist. Hi, you guys have fun. There's no need to pay attention to the three of us. We'll wait for the others." Just like Gumu, Lin Nuo laughed in a clear voice in the face of the crowd's greetings. Following which, he waved his hand and walked into the pavilion. As for Snow Fairy Ouyang Roshue, he did not even bother with her. Although a warm smile hung at the corner of her mouth, everyone could clearly feel the indifference that kept people 1,000 miles away from her. The appearance of the three king prides caused the atmosphere of the entire Thousand-Island Lake to reach a peak. Those were king prides. Normally, it was already rare to see even one of them. Yet now, there were actually three king prides gathered here. If the appearance of the exceptional geniuses earlier had suppressed the aura of the elite geniuses, then the three Pride Kings had completely suppressed the 100-plus geniuses on the central main island. The three Pride Kings sat in their own pavilions and occasionally chatted casually. They did not seem to have any intention of paying attention to the others. As the three of them chatted, more Pride Kings quickly arrived. This time, two Pride Kings had appeared at once. They did not come together. Instead, they came from different directions. It just so happened that they appeared at the same time. A gray-robed man rode on a huge bloodbath. His eyes were sharp as he approached from the east. This person was none other than the evil, arrogant king of mist from the Divine Talisman School, who was known as the Heavenly Thunder. In the south, there were two figures standing on a pitch-black goose. It was a man and a woman. The man wore a purple long gown. There was a faint smile on his face as he spoke without restraint. "TSK, TSK. The fairies of the 100 Immortals house are indeed worthy of their reputation. All of them are so pretty." The young man praised the beauty of the fairies from the 100 Immortals tower. But as the sound of his voice faded, the young woman beside him grabbed his ear and spoke with a smile that was not a smile. "What did you say earlier? I didn't hear it clearly. Say it again." "No, I didn't say anything. I said that Madam's appearance today is truly captivating." The young man smiled apologetically after being questioned by the young woman. Looking at the frightened expression on the young man's face, he did not look like a Pride King at all. However, the young man was indeed a Pride King. He came from the 10,000 Weapon Pavilion. His name was Li Hua, and his name was Feng Lingye. The young woman beside him was his betrothed wife, Su Jin. In the 10,000 Weapon Pavilion, Feng Lingye was definitely a weirdo. He clearly had the strength of a Pride King and was also very handsome. However, he was extremely afraid of Su Jin. He was definitely a henpecked husband. In front of Su Jin, Feng Lingye did not have the slightest bit of temper. After hearing Feng Lingye's reply, Su Jin released her hand in satisfaction. At the same time, Lan Xiao also arrived in front of the two and looked at Feng Lingye with a smile. "I've long heard that Li Hua Pride King has a beautiful wife. Seeing you today has truly broadened my horizons. If Heavenly Lightning Pride King is envious, then go find one yourself. With Heavenly Lightning Pride King's status, who knows how many women would throw themselves into his arms with just a curl of his finger." After hearing Lan Xiao's words, Feng Lingye smiled and replied. After exchanging some pleasantries, Feng Lingye chatted with Gu Mu and the other two who had arrived first. Then, the The two of them arrived at their own Pride King Island. 5 King of Prides had already arrived. Following the arrival of each King of Prides, the hearts of everyone around the Thousand Island Lake were stirred. Furthermore, the aura of each King of Prides caused the crowd to sigh with emotion. Dragons and phoenixes amongst men. This was the true definition of a dragon and phoenix amongst men. Their auras were not something that ordinary King of Prides could compare with. After Lancia Ao and Fonglingya appeared, Xuemu He, Barbarian King Huanggu, Burning Spear Huangfu Ao, and Immortal Sword Guduya also arrived one after another. Like Fonglingya, Guduya also arrived with his wife. His wife's name was Enran, and she was Gudu Wuya's junior sister. She looked extremely pure and was a rare beauty. Her appearance was comparable to the 100 fairies of the 100 Immortals house. 9 of the 10 Pride Kings had already arrived. As such, only Demon Sword Shao Chun had yet to arrive. As the host, Huangfu Ao smiled and spoke to the crowd on his own Pride King Island. Now, we are only waiting for Brother Shao Chen's arrival. Then, we can say that the 10 Pride Kings have gathered for the first time. It is my honor to be able to meet all of you today. Once Shao Chun arrived, the 10 Pride Kings would gather for the first time. As soon as Huangfu Ao finished speaking, Gudu Wuya, who was drinking fine wine, suddenly looked up at the sky and smiled faintly. He's here. He sensed Shao Chen's aura. As expected, a majestic, golden-winged great rock with golden wings appeared before everyone's eyes. Shao Chun and Qin Shuru stood side by side on top of it. As usual, they were dressed in decent white robes that were not tainted by a speck of dust. They perfectly complemented Shao Chen's otherworldly aura. Qin Shuru couldn't help but feel a little nervous when he saw the countless figures gathered around the Thousand Island Lake. As if sensing Qin Shuru's nervousness, Shao Chun gently grasped his little hand and smiled at him. Relax, it'll be fine. Qin Shuru smiled when he heard Shao Chen's words. In turn, he grasped Shao Chen's hand tightly. As long as Shao Chun was by his side, Qin Shuru wasn't afraid at all. They flew all the way to the Thousand Island Lake. As Shao Chun appeared, the 10 Pride Kings were finally gathered. At the same time, Huangfu Ao spoke first. Brother Shao Chun, you're late. You'll have to punish yourself with 3 cups of wine later. Please add, recommend, reward. Chapter 172. As the last King of Prides to arrive, Shao Chun smiled when he heard Huangfu Ao's words. Haha, of course. Shao Chun is late, so I must drink 3 cups as an apology. This was the first time the 10 Kings of Prides had gathered together, so they didn't show any obvious hostility. Of course, there wasn't any hostility between them. At most, they were competing against each other. In the process of competition, the 10 Kings of Prides appreciated each other because they were the only ones of the younger generation in the heavenly Chun continent who had common topics to talk about. The others were too weak. After some small talk, Shao Chun held Qin Shuru's hand and leaped off the golden-winged great eagle. They landed on their own King of Pride's Island. As Shao Chun stepped onto his own King of Pride's Island, the Sky Prides on the central island bowed once again. Greetings, King of Prides with the demonic sword. Shao Chun smiled and nodded at the Sky Pride's greetings. He then led Qin Shuru into the pavilion. With the 10 Kings of Prides all present, it meant that the first Heavenly Chun King of Pride's gathering had officially begun. At the same time, the 10 amorous fairies, who hadn't made an appearance until now, slowly flew over from the depths of the Thousand Island Lake on a flying boat pulled by 12 skylarks. The flying boat soared through the sky with the 10 amorous fairies riding on it. With the appearance of the 10 glamorous fairies, everyone's eyes were fixed on the flying boat. 10 flawless young ladies were seated on the flying boat. Their appearances could be said to be peerless in the world. Compared to the 10 beauties, the fairy from before was overshadowed. The flying boat slowly approached the Sky Prides. At the same time, the 10 amorous fairies on the flying boat also looked at the 10 Kings of Prides. Sisters, who do you like? Do you want to share? One of the 10 amorous fairies looked at the other girls and asked with a smile. Her smile was so charming that it accentuated her beauty. Upon hearing this, The other 9-10 glamorous fairies chimed in with smiles. Demon Sword Chow Chun. Originally, I liked him the most. But since Sister 100 Flowers also likes Xiao Chun, I naturally have to let Sister 100 Flowers have him. I choose Good Wuya. Me too. Since Sister Baiwa likes Xiao Chun, I'll choose Huang Fu Ao. Okay, then I choose Lin Nu. All the women spoke one after another. Only one person remained silent. She had a smile on her face, and her gaze was fixed on Xiao Chun. This woman was the elder sister by Hua that everyone had been talking about. In the 100 Immortals Tower, if one had to say who was the undisputed #1 beauty, it would undoubtedly be the 100 Flowers Fairy. This was publicly acknowledged by all the fairies. Even among the 10 glamorous fairies, the 100 Flowers Fairy was the undisputed #1 in all aspects. #1 in looks, #1 in demeanor, #1 in zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting, #1 in cultivation aptitude. Therefore, after the 100 Flowers Fairy chose Xiao Chun, the other 10 glamorous fairies lost their will to compete because even if they wanted to, they couldn't win against the 100 Flowers Fairy. Of course, because Ouyang Roshua was a woman, none of the 10 glamorous fairies chose her. On the other hand, Guduya won the hearts of 10 glamorous fairies. However, compared to Xiao Chun, Guduya was clearly not enough. Winning the hearts of the 100 Flowers Fairies surpassed everything. Even if the other 9-10 glamorous fairies all chose Guduya, it wouldn't be as good as the 100 Flowers Fairy choosing Xiao Chun. Of course, Xiao Chun and the others didn't know about the 10 glamorous fairies' choice. Under everyone's gaze, the airship slowly flew to the center of the main island. At the same time, 10 circular wooden blocks appeared from the airship, spiraling in the air. The wooden blocks weren't large, only 5 meters in diameter. The reason why these wooden blocks could hover in the air was because they were engraved with a formation. In the heavenly Chan continent, these wooden blocks were called flying logs. They could allow people to hover in the air, but their speed was extremely slow and they were very fragile. They could be destroyed with a single hit. Therefore, they were only used for viewing or playing. They weren't of any help to cultivators in battle. One of the 10 glamorous fairies was the first to stand on the flying log. Under everyone's gaze, she began to dance gracefully. At the same time, the flying log slowly flew towards the prideful King Island where the barbarian king remote antiquity was. Clearly, this 10 glamorous fairy had chosen the barbarian king remote antiquity. Her dance was beautiful and moving. It completely displayed the 10 glamorous fairies' charm. Everyone present was stunned. Even the geniuses seemed to have forgotten about their female companions at this moment. Their gazes were all fixed on the 10 glamorous fairy. If the previous 100 fairies were considered as mortal fairies, then the 10 glamorous fairies were the 9 heavens goddesses who didn't eat the food of mortals. It was rare to see such a stunning beauty in the mortal world. Following the graceful dance, the flying log slowly landed on the prideful King Island where the barbarian king was located. The 10 glamorous fairy slowly walked down from the flying log and came to the barbarian king's side. She bowed to him and spoke in a very appropriate manner. "Your servant greets the Lord." The first 10 glamorous fairy had chosen the barbarian king. Regarding this, the other geniuses were extremely envious. Compared to the 10 glamorous fairies, how could the fairies around them be called fairies? The difference between them and the 10 glamorous fairies was obvious. However, these geniuses also knew that the 10 glamorous fairies belonged to the 10 prideful kings. They couldn't touch them. After the first 10 glamorous fairy chose the king of prideful kings she admired, the rest of the 10 glamorous fairies appeared one after another. They either displayed their dance or calligraphy skills. At the same time, the 10 glamorous fairies' temperaments were all different. Some were charming, and some were gentle. In any case, there was a myriad of styles that made one's heart itch unbearably. One by one, the 10 glamorous fairies appeared. After the barbarian king, Gumu, Lan Xiao, Feng Lingye, and the other prideful kings all obtained the trust of the 10 glamorous fairies. It's worth mentioning that Feng Lingye, who had a trachea, was once again threatened by Su Jin's gaze after he obtained the heart of a 10 glamorous fairy. That gaze clearly conveyed a message to Fengling Ye. It's fine if you're just putting on a show, but if you dare to do it for real, I'll cripple you and make you unable to play with women for the rest of your life. With such a gaze, even if Fengling Ye was accompanied by a beauty, he only dared to obediently sit where he was. He didn't have the slightest intention of taking half a step forward. It was quite comical. On Demon Sword Island, Qin Shuru looked at Xiao Chan with a smile and asked, "Husband, why don't any of the 10 glamorous fairies choose you? Is it because you're not charming enough? Look, everyone else has already won the heart of a 10 glamorous fairy, but you're the only one who hasn't. Please add, recommend, reward." Chapter 173. Qin Shuru teased. None of the 10 glamorous fairies had fallen for Xiao Chan. Xiao Chen smiled. "What? Do you really want me to be chosen? Aren't you afraid that these fairies will steal my soul and abandon you?" "You won't." Qin Shuero smiled confidently after hearing Xiao Chen's words. Xiao Chan wasn't the kind of man who would abandon a woman. Qin Shuru had absolute confidence in this. Even though many women would fall for Xiao Chan in the future, Qin Shuru believed that Xiao Chan would never abandon him. Xiao Chen smiled helplessly at Qin Shuru's confidence. She flicked Qin Shuru's forehead and jokingly scolded, "Silly girl, it looks like you're really trying to push me away. What kind of wife would push her husband into another woman's arms?" Qin Shuru smiled helplessly. While the two were talking, 9 of the 10 glamorous fairies had already chosen their king of pride. Unexpectedly, Guduya had won the hearts of 2 of the 10 glamorous fairies in one fell swoop. 9 of the 10 glamorous fairies had already made their choice. Only one woman was left. Of the 10 glamorous fairies present, only Xiao Chun and Ouyang Roshue hadn't won the hearts of the 10 glamorous fairies. Ouyang Roshue was a beauty herself, so the 10 glamorous fairies naturally wouldn't choose her. However, Xiao Chun was a bit surprising. In terms of appearance, Xiao Chan was definitely at the top of the 10 glamorous fairies. His temperament and appearance were incomparable to the other kings of pride. Even so, none of the 10 glamorous fairies had chosen Xiao Chun yet. Many people had already begun to whisper, could it be that none of the 10 glamorous fairies have taken a liking to the king of the demonic sword? That's right, there's only one woman left, but none of the 10 glamorous fairies have chosen the king of the demonic sword. This is really strange. Everyone was puzzled as to why none of the 10 glamorous fairies had chosen Xiao Chun. However, soon, a rich young master voiced his guess. "What do you guys know? In my opinion, the 100 Flowers fairy has taken a liking to Xiao Chun, so the other 10 glamorous fairies had no choice but to give way to him." 100 Flowers fairy? This 100 Flowers fairy is also one of the 10 glamorous fairies? There are many people who hadn't heard of the 100 glamorous fairies. A bunch of idiots. Let's put it this way. If the beauties of the 100 Mortals Tower were to be divided into 10, the 100 glamorous fairies would only take up 4 points, and the 10 glamorous fairies would take up 6 points. Of these 6 points, the 100 Flowers fairy would take up 3 points. In the 100 Immortals Tower, the 100 Flowers fairy is the undisputed #1 beauty. If one could win the heart of the 100 Flowers fairy, the other fairies would be nothing. They described the 100 Flowers fairy's beauty as a celestial being, as though she was a goddess from the 9 heavens who had fallen to the mortal world. Whoever was lucky enough to win her hand would be extremely lucky. Just as the rich young masters were telling the crowd about the 100 Flowers fairy, the 100 Flowers fairy slowly walked out of the airship and landed on the airship. She was dressed in a white gauze dress, and her face was so delicate that no one could think of any evil intentions. She was like an exquisite work of art. Such a woman was indeed a goddess who had accidentally fallen from the 9th heaven to the mortal world. How could one meet such a perfect woman in the mortal world? So beautiful. Looking at the 100 Flowers fairy who only appeared at this moment, everyone couldn't help but say the words "so beautiful." Even the women couldn't feel the slightest bit of jealousy towards the 100 Flowers fairy's appearance. Indeed, just like what those rich young masters said, as long as one could win the heart of the 100 Flowers fairy, It would be enough to win over all the other fairies. This was a woman who could overshadow all the other fairies present, including the other 10 glamorous fairies. She didn't care about the gazes of the people around her. It seemed like the 100 Flowers fairy was already used to such gazes. At this moment, her eyes were only focused on the young man who was also wearing a white robe. However, sitting beside the young man was an equally stunning woman who didn't lose to her in terms of beauty, causing the 100 Flowers fairy to feel a little jealous. Under the gaze of the crowd, the 100 Flowers fairy slowly danced. Her beautiful dance was perfectly presented in front of everyone, causing countless men to be completely mesmerized. Even if it was just a look, countless men present were already satisfied. A fairy of this level was no longer something they could profane. The airship slowly flew towards the Demon Sword Island where Xiao Chan was. On top of the airship, a woman gracefully danced. She wore a white robe, her black hair was dyed black, and her colorful fan fluttered in the wind. She was like a fairy and a spirit. The spring moon in the sky opened its mirror. Under the moon, the woman raised her wrist and brows. Sometimes she would kiss Shu Yun's hand, and sometimes her white dress would flutter. This dance made everyone present unable to take their eyes off her. In the end, even one of the 10 proud kings, Gumu, who had the title of Immortal Music, couldn't help but play the flute for the 100 Flowers fairy. The flute music floated in the air. Coupled with the 100 Flowers fairy's graceful dance, everyone felt as if they were in a fairyland and saw a goddess from the 9 heavens dancing under the moon. It wasn't until the 100 Flowers fairy's airship landed on the Demon Sword Island and Gu Mu's flute music slowly faded away that the crowd regained their senses. At the same time, everyone understood that the reason why the 10 glamorous fairies didn't choose Xiao Chan wasn't outstanding, nor was it because Xiao Chun didn't have any charm. It was completely because of the 100 Flowers fairy. Because the 100 Flowers fairy chose Xiao Chun, the other fairies all chose to give up. Indeed, in front of the 100 Flowers fairy, the other fairies could only serve as a foil. The fairy under the moon slowly walked towards them. When she arrived in front of Xiao Chun, the 100 Flowers fairy bowed and said, "100 Flowers greets Mr. and Madam." Not only did she bow to Xiao Chun, she also bowed to Qin Shiru. Her actions were appropriate. Seeing this, Xiao Chun helplessly smiled bitterly. He turned to look at Qin Shiru. Seeing that her expression was normal, Xiao Chun let out a sigh of relief. Smiling and nodding to the 100 Flowers fairy, Xiao Chun smiled and said, "Fairy is too polite. The song just now was like the fairy under the moon, intoxicating me. You truly deserve the title of fairy." At the same time, the 100 Flowers fairy also came to Qin Shiru's side. Instead of leaning on Xiao Chun, she leaned on Qin Shiru. It could be seen how intelligent the 100 Flowers fairy was. She knew that if she made Qin Shiru feel disgusted, she would also make Xiao Chun feel disgusted. Therefore, she didn't rashly approach Xiao Chun. Regarding this, the jealousy in Qin Shiru's heart faded a little. Personally pouring a cup of wine for the two of them, 100 Flower fairy smiled and said, "You flatter me, young master. These are just small tricks. How can they catch young master's eye? This little girl is only using these small tricks to please young master. In young master's heart, I'm afraid only the endless martial Tao is young master's ultimate pursuit." Please add, recommend, reward. Chapter 174. She was well-spoken and elegant. Facing a woman as perfect as the 100 Flowers fairy, no man in the world would not be tempted. Even Xiao Chun was no exception. However, towards the 100 Flowers fairy, Xiao Chun admired her more and did not have much love. After all, he already had Qin Shiru. If he was still single, perhaps Xiao Chun would consider the 100 Flowers fairy. But now, they could only be acquaintances. Fate dictated that he could only sigh inwardly. As if she had seen through Xiao Chen's thoughts, the 100 Flowers fairy did not change her expression at all. She pushed the wine she had poured in front of Xiao Chun and Qin Shiru, and took the initiative to raise her own cup. "Sir, madam, I propose a toast to you." The Hundred Flowers Fairy took the initiative to propose a toast. In response, Xiao Chun smiled slightly. However, he waited until Qin Shi raised his own cup before raising his own. This was to tell the Hundred Flowers Fairy how important Qin Shi was in his heart. It could also be considered a tactful rejection of the Hundred Flowers Fairy's good intentions. A hint of disappointment flashed across her beautiful eyes. For a woman like the Hundred Flowers Fairy, ordinary men naturally would not catch her eye. Even those peerless geniuses would not be spared a glance by the Hundred Flowers Fairy. Ever since she received the introduction of the top 10 geniuses, the Hundred Flowers Fairy had always been interested in Xiao Chun. Now that she had seen Xiao Chun in person, the Hundred Flowers Fairy was completely attracted to him. Otherworldly, handsome, and gentle towards Qin Shi. All of these made the Hundred Flowers Fairy fall head over heels for him. However, it was a pity that Xiao Chun already had Qin Shi by his side. Moreover, Qin Shi's appearance was not inferior to the Hundred Flowers Fairy's. She sighed helplessly in her heart. This was something she couldn't do anything about. As the king of pride, Flower Fairy naturally didn't think that Xiao Chun was the same as other men, and that she could easily snatch him away from Qin Shi. For a man like Xiao Chun, his state of mind was very firm. It was foolish to try to seduce him with beauty. The three of them chatted about some irrelevant topics. As they chatted, the other prodigy kings also toasted each other. For a moment, the atmosphere of the heavenly stellar prodigy kings gathering slowly became lively. All the geniuses drank to their heart's content, while the 10 proud kings chatted casually. Occasionally, they would erupt into loud laughter. Brother Xiao Chun, you've won the heart of the Hundred Flowers Fairy. You're the real winner today, Huangfu Ao said with a smile on his proud king island. Hearing Huangfu Ao's words, Xiao Chun smiled faintly and said, Brother Huangfu Ao must be joking. I brought my wife here. I'm afraid the beauty won't have the fortune to enjoy it. Moreover, with the beauty of the Hundred Flowers Fairy, I, Xiao Chun, am not worthy of her. Brother Xiao Chun is too modest. You and the Hundred Flowers Fairy can be said to be a perfect match. Your wife is also an outstanding beauty. Brother Xiao Chun, I'm envious of the two of you. Hearing Xiao Chun's reply, Gumu said with a smile. Knowing that everyone was joking, Xiao Chun didn't take it to heart. After chatting for a while, Xiao Chun discovered that among the 10 proud kings, only he and Huang Gu came from the 4 domains outside of the Central Divine Realm. The other 8 were all people of the Central Divine Realm. The 8 proud kings all came from the Central Divine Realm. From this, it could be seen that the martial path of the Central Divine Realm was indeed much stronger than that of the 4 domains. It was no wonder that many people from the 4 domains racked their brains to run to the Central Divine Realm. There was no other way. If they wanted to break through to a higher realm, it was only possible in the Central Divine Realm. The 10 proud kings chatted with each other. In the end, Ouyang Roshua, who hadn't spoken until now, finally spoke. I say, gentlemen, it's about time for the wine and the fragrance. I'm sitting here alone. If there's anything important, please say it quickly. It seemed that she didn't like the atmosphere. It was no wonder. All the proud kings were accompanied by fairies. As a woman, Ouyang Roshua only had 2 maids to take care of her. Originally, the 100 Immortals' house could provide male pets to Ouyang Roshua. Moreover, they could guarantee that they were all good-looking. However, they were rejected by Ouyang Roshua. The other 9 proud kings were first stunned by Ouyang Roshua's words. Then they all smiled bitterly. Haha, we were careless. Fairy Snow is right. Brother Huangfu, you're the one who organized the gathering this time. If there's anything important, please say it quickly. Barbarian King Huanggu was the first to speak. Brother Huangfu, you've offended Fairy Snow. Your future days won't be easy. Hurry up and get to the point. Godly Fist Lin Nua added. When Ouyang Roshua lost her patience, everyone urged Huangfu Ao to get down to business. When he saw this, Huangfu Ao also had a bitter smile on his face. He first raised his cup and apologized to Ouyang Roshua. I was careless this time. I hope Fairy Shui can forgive me. This cup of wine is for Fairy Shui to express my apology. After saying that, Huangfu Ao raised his head and drank all the wine in his cup. He then put down the cup and looked around at the many geniuses on the central island. At the same time, a faintly discernible pressure spread out from his body. Feeling the pressure from Huangfu Ao, the proud kings on the central island, who were originally indulging in sensual pleasures, all quieted down. They all looked towards Huangfu Ao. They all knew that the highlight of the gathering was about to begin. The 10 proud kings already knew that Huangfu Ao wanted taken all the proud kings as his retainers, so they didn't care too much about what was about to happen. However, the others didn't know. Facing the gazes of the proud kings, Huangfu Ao put on a faint smile again and said, "Everyone, Huangfu Ao is not talented, but I am fortunate enough to organize this year's Proud Kings gathering. It is my honor to have everyone here. Using this opportunity, I also have some words that I would like to say to everyone. As everyone knows, the heavenly Qin continent is now in a golden age. In the younger generation, there are many proud kings. Among the many proud kings, there are 10 proud kings. In a golden age where proud kings are rampant, the proud kings will definitely fight for supremacy. If it were any other time, it would definitely be a chaotic era. However, with the appearance of the 10 proud kings, the heavenly Qin continent will no longer have the chance to show off. To put it bluntly, I'm afraid that none of you will have the right to participate in the future Proud Kings gathering. At the same cultivation level, a proud king can instantly kill all of you. Now that the 10 proud kings have broken through to the earth mirror, the gap between their cultivation levels has widened. Therefore, I suggest that everyone here should choose a proud king that you admire and become his retainer. That way, you will be able to leave your mark in the history of the heavenly Qin continent. What do you all think?" Without beating around the bush, Huangfu Ao straightforwardly stated the true purpose of this gathering. He wasn't afraid of offending any of the geniuses present. His words directly reflected the pride in his name. "I don't care what you think. Anyway, there's only one path in front of you, and that's to become the followers of the various geniuses. Please add, recommend, reward." Chapter 175. All the geniuses on the central main island were stunned when they heard Huangfu Ao's words. Let the geniuses become the guests of the 10 great prides. Huangfu Ao's words stunned all the geniuses on the central main island. As prodigies, they naturally had their own pride. Yet now, Huangfu Ao had said that they did not even have the right to participate in the competition and could only be relegated to the status of followers. Naturally, many found it difficult to accept. Their expressions all turned ugly, but no one dared to directly object, nor did they dare to vent their anger. If these words were said by an exceptional prodigy, then without a doubt, he would definitely be attacked by the crowd. However, since these words were said by Huangfu Ao, it was a different story. Moreover, judging by the expressions of the other 9 prodigies, they seemed to have known about this long ago and seemed to agree. As a result, Huangfu Ao's words represented the collective opinion of the 10 prodigies. This made it difficult for the prodigies to object. No one answered. All the sky prides remained silent. None of them had expected that the true purpose of the gathering would be for them to recognize the 10 great sky prides as their masters. Everyone looked at each other. Huangfu Ao's smile did not diminish as he continued to speak. "Everyone, think carefully. This is your only choice. Without the king of prides, all of you will be annihilated in the end. After all, this is the era of the 10 great prides, not the era of heaven's prides." His word were laced with a hint of threat. His meaning was obvious. If they did not choose to acknowledge a prodigy as their master, only death awaited them. He did not hold back at all, nor did he care about the feelings of the prodigies. However, the prodigies could not do anything. After a moment of silence, one of the prodigies finally spoke. "Scorching Spear Prodigy, you speak of acknowledging a master. Is it up to us to choose? Or is it up to you, the 10 prodigies, to choose?" There was no way to refuse something like this. Just as Huangfu Ao had said, if the prodigies did not acknowledge a prodigy as their master, they would all be annihilated in the end. Since they no longer had the right to participate in the competition, they might as well choose a prodigy of their choice and follow him. That way, they would be able to achieve something in this golden age. Huangfu Ao smiled when he heard the prodigy's question. Everyone is free to choose a prodigy as their master. We will not force you. Even if someone does not wish to acknowledge a prodigy as their master and wishes to participate in the competition with their own strength, we will not say anything. However, if they are targeted by a prodigy in the end, then they have no one to blame. They would not force the prodigies to acknowledge a prodigy as their master. They were free to choose a prodigy as their master. Even if someone did not wish to acknowledge a prodigy as their master, that was fine. However, if they were targeted by others, then they had no one to blame. Everyone was free to choose. Hearing Huangfu Ao's words, the prodigy's expressions softened slightly. Being able to choose a prodigy as their master was at least easier to accept than being forced to acknowledge a prodigy as their master. Most of the prodigies could accept the reality before their eyes. After all, this was reality. The prodigies were no longer able to participate in the competition. Huangfu Ao's words made sense as well. Only by following a prodigy as their master would they be able to obtain a place for themselves in the competition. Most of the prodigies had already accepted Huangfu Ao's suggestion. However, a small portion of them felt that acknowledging a prodigy as their master was an extremely humiliating thing. As prodigies of the younger generation, they were highly sought after in other places. However, they were now required to become the prodigies of the various prodigies. This was something that the small portion of them could not accept at once. Just as Huangfu Ao finished speaking, another prodigy spoke out coldly. I disagree. This is ridiculous. We are all prodigies. Yet you want us to become the prodigies of the 10 prodigies? You must be dreaming. Everyone, we have also fought our way out of countless prodigies of the younger generation. Now that we have become prodigies, we are actually required to become the prodigies of the 10 prodigies. Do you agree? This prodigy was obviously a proud and arrogant person. He was extremely resistant to becoming the prodigies of the 10 prodigies. Now that he had spoken out, he even wanted to rope in the other prodigies to resist with him. Hearing his words, before Huangfu Ao could speak, Lin Nuo laughed coldly and said, "If you don't agree, then step aside. No one is forcing you. If you want to rely on your own strength to participate in the upcoming competition, that is your freedom." He was not angered by this person's objection. After all, to the 10 prodigies, a mere prodigy was not worth mentioning. It did not matter whether they had one or not. They had already given this person enough face. However, after hearing Lin Nuo's words, this prodigy actually continued to shout out recklessly. What's so great about the 10 prodigies? They are prodigies too. Everyone, think about it. Are you really willing to become the prodigies of the 10 prodigies? He still did not shut up and continued to instigate the crowd. Hearing this, a fierce glint flashed across Lin Nuo's eyes, and he immediately punched out. Fist radiance flashed, and a fist formed from spiritual energy shot through the air. It streaked across the surface of the lake and headed straight for this prodigy. He had already given him a chance, but this person did not know when to back down and even dare to spout such arrogant words. Lin Nuo immediately attacked. Faced with Lin Nuo's attack, this prodigy reacted immediately. He wanted to block it, but unfortunately, Lin Nuo was known as the Godly Fist. In terms of fist techniques, he was definitely at the top of the 10 prodigies. Therefore, this seemingly ordinary punch could not be blocked by this prodigy at all. The punch broke through all defenses and landed heavily on this prodigy's chest. The sound of bones cracking could be heard as his entire chest caved in. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying, heavily injured with one punch. As a prodigy, he could not even take a single punch from Lin Nuo. Furthermore, the two of them were at least 3 to 4 kilometers apart. In other words, Lin Nuo had heavily injured this prodigy from afar. This outcome stunned all the prodigies on the central island. It was hard to imagine. If they were to fight head-on, wouldn't Lin Nuo be able to instantly kill this prodigy with one punch? This was the difference between a prodigy and a prodigy. In front of a prodigy, Even a prodigy would not have the slightest ability to retaliate. And Lin Nuo had used the most direct method to prove that Huangfu Ao's previous words were not exaggerated in the slightest. Now, there was only one path before these prodigies, which was to submit. Otherwise, they could only quietly withdraw from the upcoming battle of the Golden Age. Without the protection of a prodigy, these prodigies were completely useless. Please add recommend reward. Chapter 176. The King of Pride's attack shocked the world with a single punch. Everyone swallowed involuntarily as they looked at the severely injured prodigy on the ground. Their hearts, which had been stirred up by this person's instigation, sank once again. Another prodigy? Were they really all prodigies? Obviously not. The strength of the Ten King of Prides was not something that ordinary prodigies could compare to. It was no wonder that Huangfu Ao dared to say that the prodigies would not even have the right to participate in the future Golden Age battle. After breaking through to the Earth Mirror realm, the Ten King of Pride's strength had pulled far apart from the rest of the prodigies. Lin Nuo smiled faintly as he faced the gazes of the prodigies. You can refuse, but don't spout nonsense. You should understand that trouble comes from careless talk. No one in the same generation could be disrespectful to the King of Prides. Therefore, the other King of Prides did not find anything wrong with Lin Nuo's actions. That prodigy from before had indeed spoken out of turn. He had actually naively thought that he could incite the prodigies to rebel against the other King of Prides. It was simply laughable. After suppressing everyone with a single punch, the rest was much simpler. The disparity in strength left the prodigies with no choice. They all began to choose the King of Prides that they admired. However, before they began, Huangfu Ao spoke up. Everyone, when choosing a King of Prides, there is no need to worry about your faction. The Battle of Prides has already been approved by the various rulers. It will not involve any major factions and is purely a battle of prides. Therefore, there is no need to worry too much. Just choose the King of Prides that you admire. He deliberately reminded the prodigies that there was no need to worry about their faction. The Battle of Prides was purely a battle of prides and had nothing to do with anything else. This was something that had already been approved by the various rulers. With Huangfu Ao's words, the prodigies naturally had less to worry about. In a short 15 minutes, they all made their choices. In the end, the prodigies all chose the King of Prides that they admired. The Ten King of Prides had more or less the same number of followers. Each of them had more than 10 followers. Soon, the central island was empty. Many of the Sky Prides had already stepped onto different proud king islands. Every proud king had more than 10 Sky Prides in front of him. On the Demon Sword Island, Xiaochen looked at the 12 geniuses in front of him. 2 of them were exceptional geniuses, while the other 10 were top-tier geniuses. He smiled and said, "Everyone, feel free to relax. There's no need to be so restrained." The staff of the 100 Immortals Tower had already arranged seats for these 12 geniuses. However, without Xiaochen's permission, they didn't dare to casually sit down. Being together with the King of Geniuses, the pressure on these geniuses was truly too great. The various prideful kings all received their own prideful followers. Thus, the Heavenly Chun Continent's Golden Age competition could be considered to have truly begun. When all the chosen warriors had chosen the King of Jiao they admired, a curtain of light suddenly appeared in the sky. Many warriors around the Thousand Island Lake dropped to their knees. This was a sovereign's heaven's order issued by many sovereigns. They did not know the content of the King of Pride's order. But soon, golden words appeared on the light. At the same time, a majestic voice resounded through the sky. The King of Prides begins. From today onwards, the 5 divine sites of the divine central realm will only be open to the 10 King of Prides and other prodigies. There is no need to hand over anything obtained from the 5 divine sites to the various overlords. Everything belongs to the King of Prides. The Heaven's Secret Hall will set up the heavenly stellar list to rank the King of Prides according to their performance. It was a simple King of Pride's order, but the 2 messages sent out shocked everyone. For the king of prides, the kings had gone to such lengths. One of the two messages was that the 5 divine sights would only be open to the king of prides and other prodigies. There was no need to hand over anything obtained from the 5 divine sights. The 5 divine sights were the 5 most famous treasured lands in the divine central realm. They were even older than the 100 spirits graveyard. Every year, one of them would open. Originally, when the 5 great divine sights opened, the disciples of the 7 overlord forces could enter. Moreover, many of them obtained extremely heaven-defying opportunities and became experts of their generation. But now, because of the arrival of the king of prides, the kings had given the 5 divine sights to the various prodigies. In other words, for the next 5 years, other than prodigies and king of prides, no one else had the right to enter the 5 divine sights. Everyone was shocked. Even the various prodigies were in disbelief. Only the 10 king of prides remained calm. That was the first message. The second message was that the Heaven's Secret Hall, one of the 7 overlords, had set up the Heavenly Stellar List to rank the 10 king of prides. The Heavenly Stellar List will be used to rank the 10 king of prides according to the performance and battle records of the various king of prides. After a comprehensive evaluation, the Heavenly Stellar List would be ranked. Of course, the Heavenly Stellar List would change in real time. As for the competition between the 10 king of prides, it would naturally not be decided by a simple, single elimination tournament. Instead, it would be a competition in all aspects. During the 5 years, the 10 king of prides would clash against each other in all aspects. In the end, the true ranking of the 10 king of prides would be determined. The various prodigies stared blankly at the giant screen of light in the sky. Only when the screen disappeared did they slowly regain their senses. But very quickly, excitement surfaced in their eyes. They had already chosen to follow the king of prides they admired. As such, they were bound together for good or ill. To put it bluntly, in the competition between the 10 king of prides, if the king of prides they had chosen to follow won, then they would naturally rise in status as well. Furthermore, by following the king of prides, whether it was the competition between the king of prides in the future or the 5 divine sights, they would be able to obtain benefits that far exceeded their expectations. This was far better than cultivating step by step. This was definitely a great opportunity. Following the king of prides was indeed just as Huang Fu Ao had said. They really would be able to leave their mark in history. The rules of the Battle of Ages had already been set by the overlords. This was not a short competition, nor was it a one-sided clash. It was a true battle between dragons and tigers. During the 5 years, perhaps the 10 king of prides would win and lose to each other, but who would have the last laugh would be the most important. A smile appeared on everyone's faces. Xiaochen looked at where Huang Fu Ao was and whispered to himself, "Is this the way to compete? Interesting." These rules were obviously much more interesting than those simple, single-elimination tournaments. Please add, recommend, reward. Chapter 177. Xiao Chan was very interested in the rules set by the rulers. However, as the young geniuses were getting excited, the rulers of the Tianqian continent were gathered in magnificent shrines at the top of the Tianqian continent. The Tianqian mountain was the first godly mountain in the Tianqian continent. According to legends, the Tianqian mountain was the origin of the Tianqian continent. It was the origin of everything. The shrines at the top of the Tianqian mountain were the place where the rulers discussed matters. There was a famous saying in the Tianqian continent, "If you're not a ruler, you can't go to the top of the Tianqian mountain." It meant that if you weren't a ruler, you couldn't go to the top of the Tianqian mountain, because only rulers could go there. The rulers of the continent of the 9 clouds weren't the only ones there. Lin Na, Godly Fist, and the other 2's masters were also there. There were 10 rulers there. Even these 3 reclusive sovereigns had shown up. It was clear that the sovereigns were discussing something very important. Now, the only thing that could gather all 10 sovereigns was the matter of demonic cultivators. After the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds had suspected that Dongfang Duxing was a demon cultivator, he had started investigating. First, he wanted to make sure the rulers were innocent. Otherwise, if a demon cultivator managed to sneak into the ruler's ranks, it would be a devastating blow to the Tian continent. But luckily, after the investigation, with the help of Dao Yun and the Heaven Alchemy ruler, the rulers of the Tian continent were cleared of suspicion. Demon cultivators hadn't managed to sneak into the ruler's ranks. Since the rulers were innocent, the rulers of the continent of the Nine Clouds didn't need to hide the truth anymore. They all gathered at the shrines at the top of the Tianshan mountain. This time, all the rulers came with their real bodies. When they heard about the demon cultivators, they were all astonished. There weren't many things that could astonish the rulers, but demon cultivators were one of them, because demon cultivators were important to the survival of a race. It didn't mean that the rulers didn't have good intentions, but rather, it meant the lives of countless creatures in the Tianshan continent. The reason why the rulers had issued the ruler's heavenly decree and given the 5 great divine sights to the prodigies was entirely because of the demonic cultivators. With the appearance of the demonic cultivators, it was hard to guarantee that a second war would not break out in the heavenly Qin continent. Therefore, before the war broke out, the rulers had a discussion and decided to use all the resources of the heavenly Qin continent to help these geniuses grow. This way, when the war broke out in the future, they would have the power to protect themselves. At the very least, in the worst-case scenario, they would be able to preserve some of the heavenly Qin continent's fire. They had to prepare for the worst. As such, they could only satisfy the cultivation needs of some people. As for the others, the sovereigns couldn't care less. The heavenly alchemy ruler, who was dressed in white, sighed softly as he sat in the middle of the shrines. I hope these children can grow up as soon as possible. We've already done what we should do. Now, we can only rely on these little guys. Let's get down to business. Continent of the Nine Clouds, you said you had some clues. What's the situation? Asked the ruler of the Heavenly Alchemy clan. The ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds was the first to discover the demonic cultivators. Naturally, he was the one who understood the situation the best. He had already said he had some clues. Now, the rulers were even more concerned. The ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds didn't hide anything from the ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds. Indeed, I have some clues. I've been secretly investigating, and I've discovered that the demonic cultivators seem to be waiting for something. Therefore, some of the spies they can't protect have chosen to give up. I'm guessing that they don't want to have direct contact with us for the time being. Maybe it's not the right time. What are they waiting for? What could it be? Why would they give up on the spies they've been working so hard for thousands of years? Asked the ruler of the 10,000 weapons. After a period of secret investigation, the rulers had secretly captured many spies hidden by demonic cultivators. Among them, there was no lack of people with extraordinary statuses who held great power in the heavenly Qin continent. It was precisely because of this secret purge by the rulers that the demonic cultivators were certain to take action to protect these spies. After all, these spies were the result of their thousands of years of secret planning. If they were lost, it would be a huge blow to the demonic cultivators. But the rulers hadn't thought that the demonic cultivators wouldn't do anything even though the spies had been exposed. They just let the spies they had been working for thousands of years be exposed one by one. The rulers were suspicious of the demonic cultivators' actions. Therefore, the ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds guessed that they were waiting for something. Maybe something important had happened, and they had no choice but to give up on the spies they had been working so hard for. Everybody, what do you think is more important to the demonic cultivators than the spies? Asked the ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds, as if he already knew the answer. When the ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds said that, everybody looked glum. They had all become rulers because of their age. They understood what he meant. Their eyes were filled with murder. Leader Fantion said, "What you mean is that they want to create an empty space passage again." They quickly guessed that the demonic cultivators wanted to build a spatial tunnel. After all, with the number of demonic cultivators left in the heavenly Qin continent, even if they were a threat, the threat wasn't great. As long as they could find their hiding place, the rulers were confident that they could kill them in one fell swoop. The demonic cultivators probably understood this, So their most important task wasn't to protect the spies they had been working for thousands of years, but to create an empty space passage as soon as possible. That way, the demonic cultivators' main army would be able to reach the Tiantian continent and start a second war. The ruler of the burning skies said what everyone was worried about. If the demonic cultivators created an empty space passage, the consequences would be unimaginable. The Great War that had happened 3,000 years ago would happen again, and this time, would the Tiantian continent be able to resist the attack of the demonic cultivators? That was probably the case. Divine Talisman Ruler tapped the armrest of his chair and said, "We can't wait any longer. We have to stop them from creating an empty space passage. I suggest that we start a secret cleansing operation. Kill all the people who are related to the demonic cultivators and find their lair as soon as possible. This time, we have to end this quickly. If we keep delaying like this, it will be very disadvantageous for us. Since they're willing to give up on the spies they've been working on for thousands of years, they must have already started creating an empty space passage. Please add, recommend, reward." Chapter 178. There was no time to waste. They could not allow the demonic cultivators to successfully construct the spatial tunnel. Therefore, the Tianji ruler suggested that they wipe out all the people and forces related to the demonic cultivators. They had to force the demonic cultivators out, even if they had to force them out. After hearing the Tianji ruler's suggestion, the other rulers were silent for a moment before nodding their heads in agreement. Just like that, a storm of blood was about to descend upon the heavenly Chun continent. With the 10 rulers personally overseeing the cleanup operation, it was inevitable that some people would die unjustly. However, there was nothing they could do about it. In order to ensure that more people could survive and for the safety of the heavenly Chun continent, they could not care less. The rulers made their decision. Of course, the first thing they had to do was to completely eliminate the demonic cultivators in their respective forces. Only when the internal forces were clean could the rulers be at ease to issue orders. Otherwise, if there were still demonic cultivators mixed in, then all of their actions would be exposed to the demonic cultivators. While the rulers made their decision, the prodigies at the Thousand Island Lake gradually calmed down after their initial excitement. Among the 10 King of Prides, Huangfu Ao suggested that they start a battle on the Thousand Island Lake. The prodigies would spar with each other to liven things up. The King of Prides did not reject Huangfu Ao's suggestion. The prodigies were even more eager to fight. This was their chance to perform. If they could defeat their opponents, they would naturally leave an impression on the King of Prides. This way, they would be able to obtain more benefits in the future. Haha, since no one has any objections, let's begin. I'll go first. Seeing that no one objected, Huangfu Ao laughed heartily. Then, he nodded slightly at one of the exceptional prodigies. Seeing this, that exceptional prodigy also walked across the water and arrived at the central island. Now that all the prodigies had recognized the 10 King of Prides as their masters, the central island was empty. It was the perfect stage for everyone to battle. Huangfu Ao was the first to make a move. Seeing this, Muhi smiled and said, "Brother Huangfu, you're in such a good mood. Since that's the case, I'll play with you." As soon as he finished speaking, a peerless genius from Yu's side stepped on the water and arrived at the center of the main island. 2 peerless geniuses. However, they had now become the retainers of the 2 proud kings. They stood facing each other, bowed to each other, and attacked at the same time. It was rare to see a fight between 2 peerless geniuses. Seeing 2 peerless geniuses fighting, the crowd by the Thousand Island Lake was in high spirits. They fixed their eyes on the 2, afraid that they would miss something. Unlike these people, the 10 great prodigies appeared to be very relaxed. The battle between their guests was merely a matter of face to the 10 great prodigies. It did not matter as long as they did not lose. Of course, according to the rules, the victory of their guests might also affect their ranking among the 10 great prodigies. The 2 exchanged more than 100 moves. In the end, the peerless genius from Yu's side came out on top. He defeated the peerless genius from Huangfu Ao's side by an extremely small margin. The winner of the first battle between the 10 Lords of Pride had been decided. Everyone returned to their respective places. The peerless genius on Huangfu Ao's side, perhaps because he had lost the battle, said to Huangfu Ao with some shame, "I've embarrassed the Lord of Pride. Please punish me." However, Huangfu Ao did not mind at all. He waved his hand and smiled. "It's nothing. We'll win again next time. Sit down and rest. Don't mind it." He had no intention of punishing this person. After the battle between Huangfu Ao and Mu He ended, the other kings of geniuses also sent out their own guests. Perhaps it was because of the first battle, but the guests sent out by the kings of geniuses were all top geniuses. In the end, only Guduya and Xiao Chun had yet to participate. After the fourth battle between Ouyang Roshue and Huang Gudu, Guduya finally smiled and said to Xiao Chun, "Brother Xiao Chun, shouldn't it be our turn? Then I'll have to ask Brother Gudu to be merciful." Xiao Chun replied with a smile. "Not at all. Brother Xiao Chun must be joking." Gudu Wuya replied with a smile. Xiao Chun replied with a smile. As soon as he finished speaking, one of Gudu Wuya's peerless geniuses stepped onto the central island. Seeing this, Xiao Chun also looked at one of his peerless geniuses and smiled. "Go." His expression was very calm. Hearing Xiao Chun's words, the peerless genius nodded slightly and stepped onto the central island. Two guests, two peerless geniuses, and both of them were sword cultivators. They attacked and attacked at the same time. Without any nonsense, the two of them broke out into a great battle. Seeing the two people fighting fiercely on the central island, Qin Shiru asked curiously, "Husband, who will win, you or Guduya?" Qin Shiru was very curious about the outcome of this battle. Although Xiao Chun did not personally participate in this battle, the guest battle was enough to represent Xiao Chun. If the peerless genius on Xiao Chun's side lost, Xiao Chun would naturally lose face. In response to Qin Shiru's question, Xiao Chun smiled and said, "It's a draw. The two of them are similar in strength. Unless they fight to the death, it will be difficult to determine the winner." With Xiao Chun's eyesight, he could tell at a glance that the two of them were similar in strength. With such a similar strength, it would be difficult to determine the winner. Xiao Chun had made this judgment, and so did Guduya. At this moment, Guduya also said the same thing to his wife, and ran, as Xiao Chun had said. Hearing this, and Ran smiled and said, "Senior brother, you want to determine the winner?" Knowing Guduya very well, Guduya smiled and said, "Not really. I just want to discuss the sword with Xiao Chun. Among the top 10 prides, only Xiao Chun and I are sword cultivators. This is the first time we've met, so I want to see how well he understands a sword." With that, Guduya circulated the spirit power in his body and slowly said, "Move 3 inches to the left and stab 1 inch forward." With the support of spirit power, his voice was clearly heard by everyone present. Hearing Guduya's words, all the prodigies present were slightly stunned, while the top 10 prides all smiled faintly. Even Xiao Chun could not help but smile bitterly after hearing Guduya's words. He shook his head and said helplessly, "This guy wants to discuss the sword with me." Guduya commanded the prodigy on his side to fight. After hearing Guduya's words, the prodigy hesitated for a moment and did indeed attack according to Guduya's instructions. He moved 3 inches to the left and stabbed 1 inch forward. At that moment, this sword actually caught the flaw of Xiao Chen's guest and almost injured Xiao Chen's guest. If it were not for the fact that Xiao Chen's guest hastily retreated at the last moment, this sword would have pierced his chest. Please add, recommend, reward. Chapter 179. Under Gudu Wuya's command, the guest on his side quickly gained the upper hand. Every time he swung his sword according to Gudu Wuya's command, he was able to grasp the flaws of Xiao Chen's guest. Seeing that his guest was being forced to retreat, Xiao Chun finally spoke. "Hold your sword horizontally and swing your sword to break the enemy." Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, the guest did as he was told without hesitation. First, he held his sword horizontally in front of him to block the opponent's attack. Then, he swung his sword according to Xiao Chen's instructions and swept away Gudu Wuya's guest. Faced with this sudden attack, Gudu Wuya's guest's expression changed drastically. However, at this moment, Gudu Wuya's voice was heard. Take 3 steps back and swing your sword 7 inches. At the critical moment, Gudu Wuya commanded the guest to dodge Xiao Chen's attack. Seeing this, Xiao Chen spoke again. Turn the sweep into a stab and aim straight at the opponent's face. Using their guest as a medium, the 2 heavens favorites discussed swordsmanship in front of everyone. Under Xiao Chen's and Gudu Wuya's commands, the attacks of the 2 peerless heavens favorites became fiercer and fiercer. Of course, the 2 guests definitely benefited the most from this battle. Both of them were sword cultivators. As peerless heavens favorites, they thought that their swordsmanship had reached perfection. However, under Xiao Chen's and Gudu Wuya's commands, both of them realized that their understanding of swordsmanship was still far from perfection. While listening to Xiao Chen's and Gudu Wuya's commands, the 2 of them continued to battle. During this battle, they were constantly improving. After this battle, both of them could be said to have been taught by Xiao Chen's and Gudu Wuya's words and actions. The swordsmanship could actually be used in this way. Xiao Chen's and Gudu Wuya's commands seemed to have opened a new door for the 2 of them. After several hundred moves, Xiao Chen's guest finally grasped an extremely small flaw and defeated his opponent with a single strike. The final victory of this battle belonged to Xiao Chen. The 2 heavens favorites discussed swordsmanship with peerless heavens favorites as a medium. When a final victor was decided, Gudu Wuya revealed a faint smile. He had lost this time's sword competition. In the end, he was still 1 move behind Xiao Chen's, as expected of the monstrous sword genius. In terms of sword techniques, I'm afraid I'm no match for him. Gudu Wuya was not angry after losing the competition. Instead, he very calmly admitted his defeat. After this defeat, Gudu Wuya was filled with interest toward Xiao Chen. Among the younger generation, perhaps only Xiao Chen could compete with him in the sword Dao. Gudu Wuya slowly stood up and looked in the direction of Xiao Chen. Brother Xiao Chen, I wonder if you're interested in personally going down and comparing swordsmanship. Perhaps it was because of the battle between the 2 guests, or perhaps it was because of Xiao Chen's profound understanding of the sword Dao. Gudu Wuya, who usually did not take anything to heart, became hot-blooded and took the initiative to invite Xiao Chen to compare notes. Looking at the faint smile on Gudu Wuya's face, his junior sister, Unran, also revealed a faint smile. It was obvious that Gudu Wuya was very happy at this moment. This was the joy of meeting a worthy opponent. Hearing Gudu Wuya's words, Xiao Chen stood up and cupped his hands. Brother Gudu, please. He did not reject Gudu Wuya's invitation. The 2 of them walked across the water at the same time and arrived at the center of the main island. The kings of pride had made their moves. Seeing Xiao Chen and Gudu Wuya arrive at the center of the main island at the same time, everyone present was excited. Could they finally witness a battle between 2 kings of pride with their own eyes? It wasn't just the ordinary people. Even the other kings of pride had put away their relaxed demeanor and became serious. If the kings of pride did not think highly of the previous battle between the guests, then now that Xiao Chen and Gudu Wuya were personally participating, they had no choice but to take it seriously. These 2 fellows are really impatient, Li Hua, King Fenglingye said with a smile as he looked at the 2 people standing opposite each other on the center of the main island. Almost a day had passed since the start of the Tianshan King Assembly. At this moment, the Tianshan King Assembly was finally ushering in the final climax. The kings of pride were finally going to clash head-on. Under the gaze of countless pairs of eyes, Xiao Chen and Gudu Wuya stood opposite each other. This was the first time the 2 of them had met, so naturally, it was also the first time they exchanged blows. Looking at Xiao Chen, Gudu Wuya was the first to speak. How about we only compete in sword Dao? Hearing Gudu Wuya's words, Xiao Chen replied, That's exactly what I was thinking. There was no need for them to fight to the death here. The 10 kings of pride all possessed a terrifying secret technique, just like Shao Chen's beast transformation. Therefore, if the 10 Kings of Pride wanted to determine a victor, they would definitely have to use their secret techniques. However, it was not yet the time to decide a victor, so there was no need for them to use their secret techniques to fight to the death. Moreover, Gudu Wuya and Shao Chun were both sword cultivators. A clash of sword Dao was the battle they wanted the most. A ray of light flashed from Gudu Wuya's storage ring, and a sky-blue sword appeared in his hand. As soon as the sword was unsheathed, a chilling intent instantly radiated from the sword. This sword is called Blue Moon. It was also bestowed by the myriad weapons sovereign. Together with your Scarlet Edge sword, they are known as the two most powerful swords among Earth armaments. Although they both came from a myriad weapons sovereign, they seem to have become powerful rivals when they were first forged. They've always wanted to determine a victor. Today, the opportunity has finally arrived. As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying sword chi immediately erupted from Gudu Wuya's body. He had also reached the level of perfection. Sensing Gudu Wuya's extremely sharp sword chi, Shao Chun also drew his Scarlet Edge sword. As if it had sensed Blue Moon's existence, the Scarlet Edge sword actually began to hum as soon as it was drawn from its sheath. It seemed to be telling Shao Chun that he had to settle things with Blue Moon today. They were born from the same roots, but a mountain could not accommodate two tigers. Only one of the most powerful swords among Earth armaments was needed. So the Scarlet Edge sword and Blue Moon were destined to become powerful rivals from the moment they were born. Sensing the intense fighting while emanating from the Red Edge sword, Shao Chun also unleashed a beam of great perfection sword aura that soared into the sky. Facing each other with their swords, both of them remained expressionless. Afterwards, Gudu Wuya made the first move under everyone's gaze. He stabbed out with his seemingly gentle sword, but this attack fully displayed Gudu Wuya's battle prowess. It was extremely fast and came from an extremely tricky angle. It was an ordinary attack, but it seemed unstoppable. Shao Chun did not retreat in the face of Gudu Wuya's attack. He also stabbed out with his sword. Afterwards, the tips of the Scarlet Edge sword and Blue Moon collided viciously. The two most outstanding young sword cultivators in the world began their first battle. Please collect, recommend, reward. Chapter 180. The Scarlet Edge and the Blue Moon, the two supreme swords that were known as the strongest of the Earth tier, collided violently. At this moment, it was as if Shao Chun and Gudu Wuya were not the only ones who were engaged in a battle of fate. It was not a battle of life and death, and there was no enmity between the two of them. As a result, once the battle began, Shao Chun and Gudu Wuya only competed in sword techniques according to their agreement. They did not use any powerful killing moves. It seemed like a simple battle of sword techniques, but in the hands of Shao Chun and Gudu Wuya, it gave off a completely different feeling. Basic sword techniques seemed ordinary, but they also had the most variations. For example, the simplest sword technique, there were no less than 100 variations. The Blue Moon in Gudu Wuya's hand glowed with a faint blue light, while the Scarlet Edge in Shao Chun's hand glowed with a faint red light. The two streaks of light collided on the central island, neither giving way to the other. It seemed like only an instant had passed, but the two of them had already exchanged over 100 moves. The sharp sword chi had even cut open the ground, causing it to split open and dust to fly up. Only Shao Chun and Gudu Wuya were still wielding their swords. Everyone by the Thousand Island Lake was completely stunned as they watched the battle. This was the first time for many people to witness a battle between two kings of pride. As for Shao Chun and Gudu Wuya, the two young men in their early 20s, their attainments in sword techniques had far surpassed many experts of the older generation. Whether it was their foundation of the way of the sword, their comprehension of sword techniques, or their application of sword techniques, they were far beyond the reach of many experts of the older generation. Many sword cultivators of the older generation seemed to have understood something as they watched the battle between the two of them. Some of them even had an epiphany. The bottleneck that had not loosened for many years had loosened because of the battle between Xiao Chun and Gudu Wuya. This filled many people with shock. They weren't the only ones. The other 8 prodigy kings were the same. Xiao Chun and Gudu Wuya were known as the leaders of the 10 prodigy kings when the 10 prodigy kings had just been born. In the past, one of them had been the head of the Central Divine Region's King Pride, while the other had been the head of the 4 Great Regions' King Pride. However, as the 10 Great King Prides continued to change, the 2 of them seemed to have slowly been forgotten by everyone. For example, Su Mu and Gu Lei, who were fortunate enough to be ranked amongst the top 10 geniuses, had already been eliminated by 3 strikes. On the other hand, Feng Lingye, Lan Xiao, Lin Nuo, Gu Mu, and the other geniuses had only entered the ranks of the top 10 geniuses later on. Therefore, after the 10 great kings of geniuses had been confirmed, Xiao Chun and Gudu Wuya were once the leaders of the 10 great kings of geniuses. However, after witnessing the battle between the 2 of them, the kings of geniuses realized that the 2 of them were not called the leaders of the 10 great kings of geniuses for nothing. This fellow is much stronger than before. Muhi smiled faintly as he watched Xiao Chun engage in an intense battle. It was obvious that Xiao Chun was much stronger than he had been in the Ocean Waves Empire. Of course, the stronger Mu he was referring to wasn't the increase in cultivation, but the improvement in sword skills. Xiao Chun's sword skills had clearly improved by leaps and bounds compared to when he had been in the Ocean Waves Empire. This was also the reason why Xiao Chun had been persistently practicing the fundamental sword skills. Since joining the Eastern Sword Pavilion, Xiao Chun had never stopped practicing the fundamental sword skills. After several years and countless nights, Xiao Chun had already grasped 92 transformative level fundamental sword skills. He was only a step away from the goal of mastering 100. Of course, Xiao Chun was not satisfied with 100. In the future, Xiao Chun would continue to practice the fundamental sword skills because the help it would provide to him in the future was not to be underestimated. After several hundred moves, Gudu Wuya had already thoroughly experienced Xiao Chun's sword skills. His foundation was solid, and his comprehension was deep. This made Gudu Wuya blush with shame, but at the same time, he couldn't help but feel a little excited. Ever since he was young, Gudu Wuya's growth was just like his name. He was incomparably lonely, and this loneliness came from his talent. From a young age, he had displayed a strong talent for swordsmanship, and he also had an innate sword constitution, which was rare in the world. It was because of this extraordinary talent that Gudu Wuya's growth experience was extremely lonely and boring. At the age of 7, Gudu Wuya's competitors were the older children in their teens. When Gudu Wuya reached the age of 10, his competitors were the younger disciples who had joined the sect. Not a single person of the same age could make Gudu Wuya feel pressured, and with such a huge gap between them, it was only natural that no one of the same age could become his friend. Today, he finally met someone who was on par with him. No, not just one. With the arrival of the Golden Age, Gudu Wuya was no longer lonely. Looking at the world today, there were 9 people of similar age who could compete with Gudu Wuya, and among them, Xiao Chun was the one who Gudu Wuya valued the most. It was not for any other reason, but because Xiao Chun was also a swordsman, and a swordsman who was not inferior to him in the slightest. Sword chi crisscrossed, and sword shadows covered the sky. Amidst the sword shadows, the battle between Xiao Chun and Gudu Wuya had also reached its final stage. After a fierce battle, neither of them had the upper hand. One was known as the Demon Sword, a sword demon, while the other was known as the Immortal Sword, a sword immortal. Their understanding of swordsmanship had reached an unimaginable level. The sound of swords clashing was constantly heard. In the end, both of them swept out their swords at the same time. The final scene was fixed. Everyone saw that in the end, both of their swords were placed horizontally across each other's necks. There was no winner or loser. Gudu Wuya put away his sword at the same time, with a smile on his face. He bowed to Xiao Chun and said, "Brother Xiao Chun's swordsmanship has reached perfection. I admit my inferiority." Although on the surface, both of them were tied, Only they knew that Xiao Qian's sword was just a little bit faster than Gudu Wuya's. And it was this little bit of difference that allowed Xiao Qian's sword to be placed horizontally across Gudu Wuya's neck first. The slightest mistake could make the difference of 1,000 miles. Being a little bit faster could often determine the final outcome of a match. However, Xiao Qian did not mind Gudu Wuya's surrender and smiled. "Brother Gudu, you are too modest. If it had been a battle of life and death, both of us would have been injured. This battle would have undoubtedly been a draw." Xiao Qian was telling the truth. After the battle, just now, although Gudu Wuya's foundation was slightly inferior to his, the terrifying thing about Gudu Wuya's swordsmanship was his control of speed. His speed was sometimes fast and sometimes slow, making it impossible to guard against. Therefore, in the last attack just now, even though he had the upper hand, Gudu Wuya definitely had the ability to severely injure him if he really went all out. Please add, recommend, reward. Chapter 181. After a simple battle, Xiao Qian and Gudu Wuya ended in a draw. They did not use any secret techniques, nor did they fight with their lives on the line, as there was no need for that. Sheathing their swords, the two returned to their respective islands. Following that, the other 8 kings of prides made their moves as well. However, like Xiao Qian and the rest, they did not use their full strength. Instead, they only made a brief and simple exchange. The various kings of pride challenged one another and attacked one after another, causing the spectators to be dazzled. Even though they did not unleash their full strength, the battles between the kings of prides still caused the spectators to be filled with admiration. This was especially so for the group of geniuses. Right now, they were thoroughly convinced. The battle between the 10 kings of prides had ended. As such, the first Heavenly Stellar King Assembly was also nearing its end. After all, the purpose of the assembly was for the 10 kings of prides to recruit disciples. Now that all the heavens' prides had become disciples of the 10 kings of prides, the purpose was naturally achieved. Before they parted, everyone agreed to meet again at the 5 Elements Palace in 3 months. The 5 Elements Palace was one of the 5 divine sites of the heavenly stellar continent. Calculating the time, it would open in 3 months. That place would also be the first battlefield where the 10 kings of prides would lead their respective disciples. In that place, the 10 kings of prides would not be as peaceful as they were today for their own opportunities. "Everyone, see you at the 5 Elements Palace." After bowing to everyone, Snow Fairy Ouyang Roshue was the first to leave. The group of disciples that followed her naturally followed behind her. After Ouyang Roshue left, Huangfu Ao, Fenglingye, Gumu, Huanggu, and Gudu Wuya all said their goodbyes one by one. In the end, Xiao Qian and Qin Shuru stood up, smiled and nodded at 100 Flower Fairy, and left the 1,000-Island Lake with their own disciples. Unlike the other Heaven's Prides, Xiao Qian did not take 100 Flower Fairy with him. The two of them did not have much affection for each other. Furthermore, they already had Qin Shuru, so Xiao Qian did not want to be too distracted by love. Xiao Qian walked in a carefree manner. On the other hand, his followers all brought the fairies of the 100 Immortals Tower with them. Many of them had already pledged their lives to each other. Seeing Xiao Qian jump onto the golden winged rock and soar into the sky, 100 Flower Fairy's calm face couldn't hide her disappointment. This was the first time she had fallen in love with a man, but in the end, this was the result. After Xiao Qian disappeared into the horizon, Flower Fairy boarded the flying boat and flew towards the depths of the 1,000-Island Lake. Looking at the back of Flower Fairy, many people sighed secretly. If it was any other man, if he could win the heart of the Fairy of 100 Flowers, he would definitely wake up laughing in his dreams. However, Xiao Qian left without hesitation. Other than the 100 Flowers Fairy and a few others, the rest of the fairies had already left with the other geniuses. Clearly, this act of the 100 Immortals Tower managed to win the hearts of the other geniuses. In that case, as long as these geniuses were still alive in this world, the 100 Immortals Tower would definitely be able to stand tall and strong. The only pity was that 100 Flower Fairy, the leader of the 10 glamorous fairies, did not win the favor of Xiao Chun. No one would have thought that 100-flower fairy would be one of the few remaining in the 100 Immortals Tower. Xiao Chun left the Thousand Island Lake with his 12 guests. Afterward, when everyone parted ways, Xiao Chun looked at his 12 guests and said with a smile, "Everyone, let's part ways here. See you at the Five Elemental Palace." Among the 12 followers, more than half were Heaven's Prides of Nine Firmament Palace. However, there were also a few who were not. Thus, they had to part ways here. Hearing Xiao Chun's words, everyone bowed and bade farewell. Then, they went their separate ways. Xiao Chun led the 7 Heaven's Prides back to Nine Firmaments Palace. They did not encounter any problems along the way and returned to Nine Firmaments Palace without a hitch. After that, they went their separate ways. By the time Xiao Chun brought Qin Shuru back to the Immaculate Residence, the Heavenly Stellar Pride King meeting had come to an end. After the Heavenly Stellar Prides gathering, the Heavenly Stellar Continent had completely fallen under the control of the 10 Great Prides. The many Heaven's Prides who were on par with the 10 Great Prides had now become the followers of the 10 Great Prides. They had completely lost the qualifications to compete with the 10 Great Prides. It was safe to say that from today onwards, the younger generation of the Heavenly Stellar Continent had unquestionably become the stage for the 10 Great Prides. They were finally home. After returning to the Dustless Residence, Xiao Chun and Qin Shuru could not help but relax. In the courtyard, after washing up and changing into clean clothes, the two of them drank tea brewed by Qing Yao and Qing Luo. Qin Shuru looked at Xiao Chun with a smile. "Husband, that 100 Flowers fairy is so beautiful. Don't you feel reluctant to part with her?" He was clearly joking. Hearing Qin Shuru's words, Xiao Chun smiled and said, "What? You want me to bring her back?" With the 100 Flowers fairy's beauty, no man could dislike her. Xiao Chun was no exception. However, since he already had Qin Shuru, Xiao Chun naturally could not accept her. Moreover, Xiao Chun could be said to be fully devoted to cultivation. One Qin Shuru was enough. Adding another woman, even if she was a feast for the eyes, was not what he wanted. Xiao Chun felt a faint reluctance in his heart. He did not want to talk about the 100 Flowers fairy anymore. In his opinion, the two of them would not have any more interactions in the future. Just as Xiao Chun and Qin Shuru were casually chatting, a loud bell suddenly rang through the sky. Hearing this bell, Xiao Chun's eyes narrowed. He looked into the distance and said softly, "Someone has been promoted to Dao Disciple." The bell would only ring when a disciple was promoted to Dao Disciple. This was also the first time Xiao Chun had heard the bell ring for a Dao Disciple's promotion. In Nine Firmaments Palace, the highest cultivation base among the disciples of the Nine Peaks was only at the Sky Human stage. Where did those disciples with cultivation bases above the Sky Human stage go? Clearly, they were Dao disciples of Nine Firmaments, existences that surpassed the disciples of the Nine Peaks. Once a disciple of the Nine Peaks cultivation base surpassed the Sky Human stage and advanced to the Dao querying realm, they would immediately become Dao disciples of Nine Firmaments. They would stand above the Nine Peaks and enjoy a huge amount of resources. At the same time, they would also be given their own mountain as a place to cultivate and live. Be it in terms of identity, status, or treatment, they would be much better than the disciples of the Nine Peaks. Of course, those who could become Dao disciples were basically old disciples. The bell rang through the Nine Peaks, lingering for a long time. At the same time, on Mighty God Peak, a young man stood in the main hall of Mighty God Peak with a face full of excitement. He was a newly promoted Dao disciple who had just broken through to the Dao querying realm. From then on, he shed his status as a disciple of the Nine Peaks and became one of the Dao disciples of Nine Firmaments. Please collect, recommend, reward. Chapter 182. In the entire Nine Firmaments Palace, there were less than 120 Dao children. The reason there were so few of them was simple. Not only did the Dao children of Nine Firmaments Palace have strict requirements for their cultivation base, they also had strict requirements for their age. Only by reaching the Dao querying realm before the age of 70 could one become a Dao child. If one wanted to continue being a Tao child, one would need to break through a major realm every 20 years. If one failed to break through a major realm within 20 years, one would automatically become a deacon of 9 Firmaments Palace. Then, one would slowly become an elder. Due to such strict requirements, there were less than 120 Tao children of 9 Firmaments Palace. Although some could break through to the Tao querying realm before the age of 70, breaking through to the Tao confirmation realm or even higher within 20 years was too difficult. The higher one's cultivation base was, the more difficult it would be to break through. It would also take more time. Take the ruler of 9 Firmaments Palace, for example. One cultivation retreat could take decades. In the end, it was very likely that they would not make any progress. That was a very normal thing. However, for Tao children, if they were to break through to the Tao Gate stage, they would be able to directly become elders of 9 Firmaments Palace. With that, they would be able to obtain a great deal of resources. Barring any unexpected incidents, they would at least be able to become a primary elder in the future. In fact, they might even become the peak lords of the 9 peaks. This was 9 Firmaments Palace's perfect promotion system. And now, another Tao child had been born. The ringing continued for half an hour before the bell in the sky slowly dissipated. Xiao Chan retracted his gaze from the sky and slowly said, "If it weren't for the fact that geniuses are everywhere, the most dazzling among the countless disciples of 9 Firmaments Palace would be these Tao children." Being born in this era, the Tao children of 9 Firmaments Palace were somewhat miserable. Originally, they were the idols of countless disciples. However, due to the advent of the era of geniuses, the light of the geniuses had completely overshadowed the light of the Tao children. Although the present cultivation bases of the geniuses were not high, it was only a matter of time before they became Tao children. Thus, most people's eyes and attention were placed on these geniuses. As for the Tao children, no one cared about them at all. Xiao Chun sighed inwardly. Of course, the Tao children were aware of these changes. However, what could they do about it? Living in this era, there was nothing he could do about it. He did not think too much about it. Xiao Chen knew that Tao children were the true core of 9 Firmaments Palace. They were the future pillars of 9 Firmaments Palace. After these Tao children grew up, they would become the next generation of elders of 9 Firmaments Palace. However, for Xiao Chun, becoming a Tao child was just a matter of time. Thus, there was nothing worth paying attention to. His days were peaceful again. Xiao Chan was immersed in cultivation every day. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. In this half a month, Xiao Chun had finally completed the cultivation of all 100 basic sword techniques. Possessing 100 basic sword techniques that had reached the transformation stage, Xiao Chan could vaguely sense that his sword techniques had undergone a transformation. Thus, without hesitation, Xiao Chan went to the Martial Skills Hall and collected another 100 basic sword techniques. The cultivation of basic sword techniques was endless. Xiao Chan understood this very well. The more basic sword techniques he mastered, the greater the benefits it would bring him. No matter how many changes there were, they were all derived from the basics. From this, one could see how important basic sword techniques were to a sword cultivator. As Xiao Chun was immersed in his cultivation once more, another invitation card was sent to the Immaculate Residence. "A Tao child is inviting me to a banquet," Xiao Chun muttered as he sat in the garden of the Immaculate Residence and looked at the invitation card in his hand. This invitation card was sent by the newly promoted Tao child some time ago. In order to celebrate his promotion to Tao child, this person was going to hold a banquet and invite some of his friends to attend, including Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun didn't know this person or even his name. Looking at the signature on the invitation card, Yin Kong, Xiao Chun had no impression of this person at all. However, this person had invited him to a banquet. "Are you going?" Qin Shu, who was sitting next to Xiao Chun, asked. "Let's go. I've just been promoted to Tao child. It's not good to turn him down. Moreover, this person shouldn't have any ill intentions," Xiao Chun replied to Qin Shu's inquiry. In the end, he decided to attend. After all, he didn't sense any ill intentions from Yin Kang's words. Moreover, he had just been promoted to Tao child. It would be inappropriate for him to refuse. After thinking about it, Xiao Chun decided to go. The banquet was to be held on the mountain peak that Yin Kong had just been assigned. As a Dao child, he had his own mountain peak. The time was set to be 3 days later. At dusk on the third day, Xiao Chun left the dustless residence alone. He had originally planned to bring Qin Shuru along, but Qin Shuru said that he didn't want to go. Thus, Xiao Chun had no choice but to go alone. He had already prepared a congratulatory gift in advance. It was a Dao querying pill. For someone who had just broken through to the Dao querying realm, the Dao querying pill was definitely a precious treasure that couldn't be bought with money. This was because the most important thing for Dao querying realm warriors was to find their own Dao. The Dao querying pill could allow one to enter a state of emptiness for a short period of time. Such a state of cultivation was like a heaven-sent opportunity for enlightenment. However, it was a pity that everyone could only take one Dao querying pill in their lifetime. The second one would have no effect. It was already an extremely expensive gift. Of course, it was nothing to Xiao Chun. With Dao Master Danyun as his master, a mere Dao querying pill wasn't a problem. Moreover, this was only a red-veined Dao querying pill, which was casually refined by Dao Master Danyun. With the congratulatory gift in hand, Xiao Chun quickly arrived at the mountain peak that Yin Kong was at. It was located in the east of the 9 sacred mountains. It was a small mountain peak. When Xiao Chun arrived at the foot of the mountain, a mighty god peak disciple hurriedly came forward to welcome him. This person was clearly Yin Kang's junior brother. He was in charge of receiving guests here. Naturally, he wouldn't dare to slight a heavyweight like Xiao Chun. He personally led Xiao Chun up the mountain. Along the way, this disciple appeared nervous. There was no helping it. Xiao Chun's fame had long spread throughout 9 Firmaments Palace. The Aquamarine Waves Empire fought against Mu He. The Heavenly Dawn King's prideful king took in geniuses as his followers. His various feats were worthy of admiration and respect. He respectfully led Xiao Chun all the way to the mountain peak. Clearly, he had received the news in advance. Before Xiao Chun appeared, Yin Kong, who was wearing the robes of a Dao child, was already waiting there. Seeing Xiao Chun walk over, Yin Kong quickly stepped forward to welcome him. "Brother Xiao Chun, please forgive me for not coming out to meet you. Please forgive me. Please collect, recommend, reward." Chapter 183. He was extremely enthusiastic toward Xiao Chun. As a new Dao disciple, Yin Kong could totally address Xiao Chun as junior brother in terms of seniority. However, he didn't dare to. After thinking about it, he still addressed Xiao Chun as brother in the end. He warmly welcomed Xiao Chun into the courtyard. With the arrival of Xiao Chun, the other guests also looked over. It couldn't be helped. Xiao Chun's brilliance was now too dazzling. Even a Dao disciple couldn't compete with him. They walked all the way to the main hall. The seat that was arranged for Xiao Chun was the head seat. Xiao Chun was also helpless towards Yin Kang's arrangement. He couldn't refuse and could only sit down calmly. And when Xiao Chun handed over his gift, the Dao-seeking pill, to Yin Kong, everyone present gave him another round of sidelong glances. What a generous gift, giving away the Dao-seeking pill just like that. Even Yin Kong was stunned. It wasn't that he didn't know how precious the path-seeking pill was. Even though he was now a Dao disciple, it wasn't easy to obtain a path-seeking pill. However, Xiao Chun actually gave him one without hesitation. Moreover, it was a red-veined path-seeking pill. "Brother Xiao Chun, this gift is too precious. I can't accept it." "Senior brother Yin Kong, you're exaggerating." After a round of polite excuses, Yin Kong finally accepted Xiao Chun's gift. He carefully put the path-seeking pill into his storage ring. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that the value of this path-seeking pill alone was enough to match the congratulatory gifts from everyone present. Most importantly, this path-seeking pill was what Yin Kong needed the most right now. This was because he had just broken through to the path-seeking realm and urgently needed to find his own Dao. The banquet was very simple. It was just everyone drinking and chatting together while congratulating Yin Kong on his promotion to Tao disciple. During the banquet, Xiao Chun naturally became the focus of everyone's attention. Even many Taoists took the initiative to toast him. In front of Xiao Chun, these Taoists didn't dare show the slightest bit of arrogance. They knew that Xiao Chun's future accomplishments would absolutely not be something they could compare to. Even now, Xiao Chun's cultivation was only at the earthly mirror realm, but his status had already far surpassed these Taoists. Xiao Chun did not act arrogantly because of his status. On the contrary, he was very amiable and approachable. Regardless of whether it was a Taoist or an ordinary disciple of the Nine Peaks, Xiao Chun responded to all of them with a smile. He even casually chatted with them. When they saw how approachable Xiao Chun was, the originally nervous disciples of the Nine Peaks slowly relaxed one by one. At the same time, their impression of Xiao Chun increased by quite a bit. He was one of the 10 great prodigies, but he was neither arrogant nor impatient. He was even gentle and courteous when dealing with people. The banquet slowly came to an end under the warm atmosphere. It continued until midnight, when everyone took their leave one after another. Xiao Chun was originally about to leave, but he was stopped by Yin Kong before he left. Yin Kong brought Xiao Chun to his study. At this moment, only Yin Kong and Xiao Chun were alone. Yin Kong seemed to be in a difficult position when he looked at Xiao Chun. He stuttered for a long time, but he still didn't say why he was called here. He was already curious as to why Yin Kong would invite him. After all, the two of them didn't know each other before. Now that he saw Yin Kang's troubled expression, Xiao Chun was even more certain that Yin Kong definitely had something to ask of him. As fellow disciples of the same sect, Xiao Chun didn't have a bad impression of Yin Kong. If it was something that he could help with, Xiao Chun wouldn't mind helping him. As a result, Xiao Chun took the initiative to speak to the troubled Yin Kong. Senior Yin Kong, if you have something to ask, feel free to say it. There's no need for this between fellow disciples of the same sect. He took the initiative to speak. When he heard Xiao Chun's words, a trace of gratitude appeared on Yin Kang's face. He then clenched his teeth and told Xiao Chun the truth about his situation. It was just as Xiao Chun had guessed. Yin Kong really did have something to ask of him. This matter wasn't difficult, but it wasn't simple either. Everything had to start with Yin Kang's family. Yin Kang's family background wasn't ordinary. They were one of the 2 great families in Tranquil City. Tranquil City was an extremely famous city in the entire Central Divine region. It was known as one of the 8 main cities of the Central Divine region. It occupied a vast area and had a prosperous economy. It was said that there were more than 100 million permanent residents. It was an enormous ancient city with a long history. The 2 great families in Tranquil City were the Yin family that Yin Kong belonged to. The Su family was the family that Yin Kong belonged to. Moreover, the Su family was the family that Su Jin, the wife of one of the 10 great prided kings, Feng Lingye, who was also known as Li Hua, belonged to. As the wife of a prided king, Feng Lingye also came from Tranquil City. He and Su Jin were childhood sweethearts. Relying on Su Jin's status, the 2 families that were originally at peace with each other became increasingly conflicted. The Su family even had thoughts of wiping out the Yin family in one fell swoop. Because of Su Jin's existence, the Su clan's influence in Tranquil City grew stronger and stronger. As for the Yin clan, it was obvious that they didn't dare to go against a proud king, so they kept retreating in defeat. Until now, the Yin clan had already reached a precarious state and could collapse at any time. An enormous family with hundreds of years of history in Tranquil City was on the brink of collapse because of a single prided king. As a direct descendant of the Yin family, Yin Kong naturally couldn't watch as his family was destroyed. However, Yin Kong couldn't do anything about Su Jin. Yin Kong was not afraid of Su Jin alone. However, behind Su Jin was the prided king, Li Hua, Feng Lingye. This was not an existence that Yin Kong could afford to offend. Additionally, 9 Firmament's Palace would not participate in the battle between the Yin family and the Su family. After all, this was their own matter. However, only the prided king had the qualifications to go against him. Thus, after much consideration, Yin Kong decided to ask Xiao Chun for help. He hoped that Xiao Chun could step forward and help the Yin family. Only Xiao Chun could stop Feng Lingye and make the Su family stop. Yin Kong told Xiao Chun everything in detail. Hearing Yin Kang's words, Xiao Chun said indifferently, "Do you want to wipe out the Su family, or—" "Brother Xiao Chun, you misunderstand. My Yin family has no intention of dominating Changle City. We just want to protect ourselves. Truth be told, my Yin family and the Su family have coexisted peacefully in Changle City for hundreds of years. During that time, many of the disciples of our two families have married each other, and our relationship is very good. However, with the emergence of the Li Hui King and the existence of Su Jin, the ambitions of the Su family grew. At present, they have already decided to wipe out the Yin family in one fell swoop. I have never thought of wiping out the Su family. I only hope to protect the Yin family. I hope that Brother Xiao Chun can help us. Even if I have to work like a horse in the future, I will repay Brother Xiao Chen's kindness." He had no intention of wiping out the Su family. After all, there are many descendants of the Yin family in the Su family. The two families have been married for a long time, and many of the Su family's descendants had the Yin family's blood flowing through their veins. The more he spoke, the more agitated he became. In the end, Yin Kong even knelt before Xiao Chun and begged bitterly. This was the last straw of hope for his Yin family. Please collect, recommend, reward. Chapter 184. He directly knelt in front of Xiao Chun and begged. There was no other way. The Su clan had already given an ultimatum. The Yin clan had to leave Changle City within 5 days. Otherwise, they would attack the Yin clan through Su Jin. There was no other way out. Otherwise, Yin Kong wouldn't beg Xiao Chun like this. Xiao Chun helped Yin Kong up with his own hands. He looked at Yin Kong and finally said, "If things are really as senior brother Yin Kong said, I can help. However, I can only protect the Yin family from destruction. I will not help the Yin family destroy the Su family." "Really? Don't worry, Junior Xiao Chun. My Yin clan has no intention of destroying the Su clan." Hearing Xiao Chun's words, Yin Kong was immediately overjoyed. Xiao Chun did have a good impression of Yin Kong. Although they hadn't interacted much from the surface, Yin Kong seemed to be the kind of person with a gentle personality. Whether it was the way he treated people or the way he spoke, they all displayed Yin Kang's gentle personality. People like this usually didn't like killing. At the same time, they were honest people. It was because of this that Xiao Chun agreed. Finally, with Xiao Chen's help, the Yin clan's crisis was resolved. Unable to hide the excitement in his eyes, Yin Kong excitedly bowed to Xiao Chun and said, "Yin Kong will never forget Brother Xiao Chen's kindness. This time, I can make the decision to give the clan's sword seed to Brother Xiao Chun as a token of my gratitude." Naturally, he knew that he couldn't let Xiao Chun help him for free. Therefore, Yin Kong decided to give the Yin clan's heirloom sword seed to Xiao Chun as a token of gratitude. Hearing the two words sword seed, Xiao Chun, who originally had a calm expression, couldn't help but be moved. This sword seed was simply a peerless treasure. It could only be born in places like Burial Sword Valley. It absorbed the essence of countless swords and was called a sword seed. As for the sword seed, it was an irresistible treasure to any sword cultivator. There were simply too many benefits. As for Xiao Chun, the greatest benefit was undoubtedly the Heavenly Way sword embryo. He had been tirelessly feeding the Heavenly Path sword embryo regardless of the cost. However, the Heavenly Path sword embryo that had devoured so many swords still hadn't changed much. Such a transformation speed was too slow. However, it would be different if there was a sword seed. It was hard to imagine what would happen if the Heavenly Path sword embryo devoured a sword seed. He never thought that the Yin clan would have a sword seed. Hearing this, Xiao Chun was filled with anticipation. This was definitely a great opportunity for him. It could greatly reduce the time needed for the Heavenly Way sword embryo to grow. He didn't know that this sword seed was obtained by the Yin clan's ancestor by chance. After that, it had been passed down from generation to generation. Now that it was a matter of life and death, the Yin clan was willing to give it to Xiao Chun. After all, the Yin clan members weren't fools. They knew that ordinary treasures wouldn't be too attractive to Xiao Chun. It would be embarrassing to take it out. Looking at the entire Yin clan, the only thing that could make Xiao Chun value was the sword seed. Therefore, the Yin clan members gritted their teeth and agreed to give the sword seed to Xiao Chun to thank Xiao Chun for his help. He set a time with Yin Kong and told him to find him at the Sky Sword Peak the next morning. Then, the two of them set off for Tranquil City. Yin Kong personally sent Xiao Chun to the foot of the mountain and watched as Xiao Chun left. Only then did he turn around and use a sound transmission talisman to inform the Yin clan of what had happened here. It was a very simple message. He only said that Xiao Chun had agreed to help, so that his father and the Yin clan could rest assured. He would arrive at Tranquil City with Xiao Chun in 3 days' time. After returning to the dustless residence, he told Qin Shuru about Yin Kang's matter. After learning that Xiao Chun would be leaving tomorrow, Qin Shuru didn't say much, although she was a little reluctant. She also knew how important the sword seed was to Xiao Chun. Not to mention other things, just the sword seed alone was something that Xiao Chun couldn't refuse. After a silent night, Yin Kong arrived at the dustless residence early the next morning. It was obvious that he was very anxious about the Yin clan's matter. Without wasting any time, Xiao Chun and Yin Kong left on the great golden-winged Peng Eagle after informing Song Xian and Dao Master Danyan. Setting off from Nine Firmament's palace, with a great golden-winged Peng Eagle speed, it would take them 3 days to reach Tranquil City. On the way, Xiao Chun took out a mask and put it on his face. The reason why he wanted to hide his identity was naturally because Xiao Chun had his own plans. The current situation in Tranquil City was only Yin Kang's side of the story. His original intention was not to get involved in the battle between the aristocratic families. But this time, firstly, it was because of Yin Kang's pleading. Secondly, he only needed to protect the Yin clan. He didn't need to deal with the Su clan. Lastly, Xiao Chun was really jealous of his sword seed. Combining the above 3 reasons, Xiao Chun agreed to help. However, Xiao Chun wasn't stupid. He didn't want to be used as a tool by others. Since the Su clan could force the Yin clan to the brink of death with just Su Jin, the Yin clan could also force the Su clan to the brink of death with him. Perhaps the effect would be even better. Therefore, before personally understanding the situation, Xiao Chun didn't want to expose his identity. He also didn't want others to use his name to do whatever they wanted. Seeing Xiao Chun put on a mask to hide his identity, Yin Kong was not stupid. He quickly guessed Xiao Chun's intention. Yin Kong didn't say anything about it. After all, if the truth was as he said, then it didn't matter whether Xiao Chun hid his identity or not. In the end, it was fine as long as Xiao Chun could protect the Yin clan. Due to the urgency of time, the two of them didn't stop to rest along the way. After 3 days, the two of them finally arrived at Tranquil City. They didn't directly fly into the city on the great golden-winged Peng Eagle. Instead, they walked into the city and went all the way to the Yin clan. As the 2 patriarchs of Tranquil City, the Yin clan's mansion was naturally extraordinary. However, perhaps because of the Su clan, the Yin clan's mansion had become deserted and desolate. Under Yin Kang's lead, the two of them strode into the courtyard and went all the way to the main hall. At the same time, Yin Kang's father, the current patriarch of the Yin clan, Yin Muyu, was already waiting there with a group of Yin clan's higher-ups. They had already received Yin Kang's message. However, when they saw Xiao Chun wearing a mask, Yin Muyu and the others couldn't help but be slightly stunned. They didn't know what Xiao Chun wanted to do. Xiao Chun whispered something to Yin Muyu. After that, Yin Muyu also understood what Xiao Chun meant. He didn't show any signs of anger. After all, the Yin clan didn't have the right to be angry in front of Xiao Chun. He bowed respectfully to Xiao Chun. In response, Xiao Chun nodded slightly and said indifferently, "Patriarch Yin, I can help with the Yin clan's matters. However, I have a condition. No one is allowed to expose my identity." Although Yin Muyu and the others already knew why he was wearing a mask, Xiao Chun still deliberately reminded them, "Brothers, please vote for Sword Master Bao Wang. It's free. Moreover, Sword Master Bahuang's current recommendation results are indeed a bit dismal. There's a huge gap between the overall results. In addition, I hope that brothers can publicize this more and introduce Sword Master Bahuang to your friends. Finally, and most importantly, thank you brothers for your support. Thank you very much. Woofing will definitely not disappoint you brothers. Chapter 185. It was forbidden for anyone in the Yin clan to reveal their identities. Of course, only a few of the higher-ups of the Yin clan knew about Xiao Chen's arrival. Ordinary members of the Yin clan did not know about Xiao Chen's arrival. Yin Kong personally arranged a place for Xiao Chen to stay. After resting for about an hour, Xiao Chen suggested that they go to Changle City for a stroll. It was his first time in Changle City. As one of the 8 main cities in the Central Divine Realm, Changle City's prosperity was naturally not something an ordinary city could compare to. Yin Kong accompanied him as they strolled through the streets of Changle City. There were still 2 days before the 5-day deadline given by the Su family. Xiao Chen was naturally not in a hurry. If the Su family really came knocking on his door, and the situation was as Yin Kong had described, he would step forward to solve the Yin family's problem. The wide streets were filled with shops, and there were all kinds of products. Although Xiao Chen did not like many of them, he still bought some rouge and face powder that women liked. He planned to bring it back to Qinshu, Qingyao, and Qingluo. They strolled leisurely. Yin Kong, who was very familiar with Changle City, naturally acted as a tour guide. He had grown up in Changle City and was very familiar with everything in the city. While the two of them were strolling, a group of young men walked towards them. When Yin Kong saw the leader of the group, his face instantly turned gloomy. Noticing Yin Kang's change of expression, Xiao Chen also turned to look at the group of young men who were walking toward them. At the same time, the group of people also saw Yin Kong. The leader of the group immediately revealed a faint smile. He walked straight up to Yin Kong and sneered. Yin Kong, you actually dare to come back. Why? Are you here to persuade the Yin family to move out of Changle City? The young man was called Su Chu. He was the young master of the Su family and also Su Jin's brother. Su Chu was also a Dao disciple in the 10,000 Weapon Pavilion. His cultivation had also broken through to the Dao querying realm. Su Chu and Yin Kong had known each other since they were young. They were playmates when they were children. Unfortunately, with the rise of Feng Ye, the Su family's ambition expanded step by step, causing Su Chu and Yin Kong to turn against each other. There were even a few times when Su Chu humiliated Yin Kong in public. In the face of Su Chu's provocation, Yin Kong did not want to pay attention to it. However, how could Su Chu let Yin Kong leave so easily? The group of young men following behind Su Chu immediately blocked the path of Yin Kong and Xiao Chen. Su Chu glanced at the masked Xiao Chen with an indifferent expression. He did not care and continued to look at Yin Kong as he spoke. There are only 2 days left. Yin Kong, go back and tell the Yin clan that if they know what's good for them, they should leave Changle City on their own accord. Otherwise, when my sister returns, I'm afraid it won't be so easy for the Yin clan to leave even if they want to. After that, Su Chu walked away directly without waiting for Yin Kang's reply. It was just a simple stroll around Changle City. He did not expect to meet Su Chu. Su Chu's return to Changle City clearly proved that the Su family had the intention of dominating Changle City and was prepared to kill the Yin clan. Xiao Chen glanced at Xiao Chen apologetically. Regarding this, Su Chu did not care too much. In the eyes of the current Xiao Chen, such provocation was meaningless. As long as he wanted to, he could kill Su Chu without even knowing how he died. Xiao Chen was only at the earthly mirror realm, while Su Chu was already at the Dao querying realm. Both sides were not on the same level. However, if Xiao Chen really wanted to touch Su Chu, he only needed to send a message back to 9 Firmament Palace. Those Dao children would not hesitate to attack. As for Su Chu, he clearly did not have the ability to command those Dao children from the Myriad Weapon Pavilion. This was the difference in status between the two of them. Originally, Xiao Chen did not want to pay attention to this meaningless provocation. After all, if the Su family really dared to come 2 days later, Xiao Chan would make them go back to where they came from. Just as he was about to leave with Yin Kong, Su Chu's shout suddenly came from behind Xiao Chun. Su Chu shouted coldly, "Where did this little brat come from? Get lost." Along with the shout, a little girl stood in front of Su Chu. Of course, this little girl did not do it on purpose. What could a 5- or 6-year-old child know? However, because of this little girl's unintentional mistake, Su Chu directly kicked the little girl. Then, the little girl was sent flying. She did not have any cultivation and was only 5 or 6 years old. On the other hand, Su Chu was a genuine Dao querying realm expert. With this kick, the little girl was immediately killed, committing murder on the streets. However, regarding this, no one in the surrounding dared to step forward to stop it. Only the little girl's mother was so frightened that her face turned pale. She hugged the little girl's corpse and cried bitterly. Everyone in Changle City knew that the situation in Changle City was going to change. The situation where the two powers existed side by side was about to change. The Su family was about to become the only overlord in Changle City. Perhaps it was because of the rise in the Su family status that the Su family's disciples became more and more rampant in Changle City. Things like today were not the first time that happened to the Su family's disciples. There were even worse things than this. For example, kidnapping women, taking advantage of others. All kinds of evil deeds were vividly displayed by the Su family. Regarding this, although the people were angry, there was nothing they could do. In Changle City, who dared to offend the Su family, who was at the peak of their power? He looked coldly at Su Chu. Just as Su Chu acted as if nothing had happened and was about to leave, Xiao Chun, who had been silent all this time, finally opened his mouth. "You want to leave after killing someone?" Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Su Chu turned around and looked at Xiao Chun with a mocking expression. "Why? Do you want to stand up for me?" He did not feel that Xiao Chun was any threat. In Su Chu's opinion, Xiao Chun was at most a follower of Yin Kong. He did not have the slightest bit of regret. Perhaps in Su Chu's opinion, the little girl's life was so lowly that it was even worse than grass. He had never thought of himself as a saint. In addition, the people of the Tianqian continent were tough. Martial arts flourished, and life and death battles were staged every day. However, facing a weak little girl, Su Chu could actually kill her. This made Xiao Chun furious. Since he was a martial artist, he should have the strength of character of a martial artist. Didn't he feel ashamed to kill a weak person? Facing Su Chu, who did not have the slightest bit of regret, Xiao Chen's face hidden under the mask had become extremely cold. His eyes were filled with murderous intent as he stared at Su Chu. After a while, Xiao Chun said word by word, "2 days later, I will wait for you at the Yin family." After that, he ignored Su Chu and walked towards the dead little girl. After seeing Su Chu's actions with his own eyes, the anger in Xiao Chen's heart changed some of his thoughts. At first, he only wanted to protect the Yin family. But now, in Xiao Chen's heart, Su Chu must die. Please collect, please recommend. Chapter 186. Ignoring Su Chu, Xiao Chan walked past him and came to the side of the little girl's body. Looking at the girl's mother, who was crying bitterly, the coldness in Xiao Chen's eyes became more and more intense. With the heart meridian broken, even the gods would not be able to save her. He did not expect that Su Chu would be so cruel to a little girl, leaving no chance for the little girl. Knowing the girl's mother's grief, Xiao Chun did not know how to comfort her and let her think things through. Xiao Chun could not say these words. When encountering such a thing, who would be able to think things through if they were in her shoes? Thousands of comforting words turned into a silent sigh in the end. From the space ring, he took out 100 spiritual stones and gave them to the girl's mother. If these spiritual stones were exchanged for gold coins, it would definitely be enough for an ordinary person to live a carefree life. I will avenge her. If you need anything, you could go to the Yin family. The Yin family will help you. After handing the spiritual stones to the girl's mother, Xiao Chun gently touched the girl's forehead and said slowly, "Now, for this weak woman, all comforting words were useless. The only thing Xiao Chan could do was to avenge the little girl and try his best to help her family. For this matter, the Yin family was obviously more suitable for him. Because the Yin family was a big family in Tranquil City, Xiao Chan was just a passerby. Sooner or later, he would have to leave. Therefore, Xiao Chan asked the girl's mother to go to the Yin family. Without answering Xiao Chan, the woman just stared blankly at the little girl's body. In this regard, Xiao Chan did not say anything more. Perhaps only time could slowly heal the wound in the woman's heart. After leaving the spiritual stones, he took a deep look at the little girl. She was only 5 or 6 years old. Perhaps no one would have thought that death would come so suddenly and dramatically. He only hoped that in the other world, the little girl would not meet someone like Su Chu again. Returning to Yin Kang's side, Xiao Chan said lightly, "Take good care of their family. With the Yin family's power, it should be a small matter." "Yes." Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Yin Kang solemnly nodded and replied. After receiving Yin Kang's answer, Xiao Chan looked deeply at Su Chu, as if he wanted to engrave him in his heart. In Xiao Chen's heart, anyone in the Su family could live, but only Su Chu had to die. Even if he was Su Jin's brother, even if he would encounter Su Jin's obstruction, and even if he became enemies with Feng Lingye, Xiao Chan would destroy this bastard at all costs. This kind of person didn't deserve to live in this world. Therefore, even if he had a powerful background, Xiao Chan would completely kill him. Retracting his gaze, Xiao Chan and Yin Kang were about to turn around and leave. But at this moment, Su Chu said, "What? Did I allow you to leave?" Perhaps Xiao Chen's previous actions made Su Chu unhappy. At this time, he actually refused to let Xiao Chun and Yin Kang leave. Seeing this, Xiao Chun spoke first before Yin Kang could speak. "What? You want to keep us here? I'm afraid your Su family doesn't have the ability to do so." In the current Tranquil City, the Su family was like the sun in the sky. However, this was only in terms of momentum. If they were to fight with real swords and spears, the Su family's overall strength was actually not much stronger than the Yin family. The reason why the Yin family fell into such a situation was because they didn't dare to fight the Su family. If they did, Feng Lingye would take action and the Yin family would be destroyed. This was certain. Therefore, the Yin family was afraid of Su Jin and Feng Lingye, not the Su family itself. In terms of strength, the Yin family wasn't afraid of the Su family. It was just that the Yin family didn't dare to take action. They didn't think that Su Chu would take action at this time. It was just like how Xiao Chan didn't take action against Su Chu even though he was overflowing with killing intent. Because there was no one around him now, to kill Su Chu, he would need to transfer people from Nine Firmaments Palace. Therefore, for the time being, Xiao Chun suppressed the killing intent in his heart. Su Chu stared coldly at Su Chu. After hearing Xiao Chen's words, Su Chu was silent for a moment. Then, he suddenly laughed loudly. "Ha! Good, good. Your Yin family won't shed tears until you see the coffin. Since that's the case, let's wait and see. Now, even if your Yin family wants to leave Tranquil City safely, it will be impossible. Yin Kang, just you wait." Indeed, he didn't take action impulsively. After saying that, Su Chu gave Xiao Chen a deep look. Then, he led the group behind him and left. The conflict didn't erupt at this moment. However, it was already brewing. Whether it was Xiao Chun or Su Chu, both of them had already set the stage for a conflict that would shock the entire Central Plains divine region. This conflict, which would be recorded in the annals of history, would also lead to the first fight to the death between the 10 prided kings. Su Chu directly returned to the Su family. Without any hesitation, he contacted his sister, Su Jin, and asked her to return to the family immediately. In addition, he also asked her to bring Feng Lingye along. After receiving her brother's message, Su Jin quickly replied that she would arrive within 2 days. After receiving the reply, a cold smile immediately appeared on Su Chu's face. This time, he wanted to see what the Yin family would use to deal with the Su family. Of course, Su Jin didn't know what had happened today. She also didn't know what the Su family had done in Tranquil City during this period of time. To Su Jin, she was only doing it for her family. However, she wasn't an evil person. From a certain point of view, Su Jin was actually being used by the Su family. The Su family also borrowed Su Jin's tiger skin to do whatever they wanted in Changle City. At the same time that Su Chu contacted Su Jin, Xiao Chun, who had also returned to the Yin family, also used a sound transmission talisman to contact Song Xian. He briefly told Song Xian about what had happened in Changle City. Song Xian's reply was very simple. What do you want to do? I want to meet the Myriad Weapon Pavilion in Li Hua Jiao Wang, Fenglingyue. In response to Song Xian's question, Xiao Chun directly replied, if he wanted to kill Su Chu, he would definitely be stopped by Su Jin. As such, he would have to become enemies with Fenglingyue and the Myriad Weapon Pavilion. Thus, before that, Xiao Chun naturally had to make some preparations. He had to mobilize some experts from Nine Firmament Palace. After Xiao Chun sent the message to Song Xian, only a quarter of an hour had passed. The news of Xiao Chun preparing to fight to the death with Fenglingyue in Changle City quickly spread throughout Nine Firmaments Palace. At the same time, the news of Xiao Chun needing help from Nine Firmaments Palace spread like wildfire. For a moment, the entire Nine Firmaments Palace was in an uproar. The Peak Master of Holy Maiden Peak, Su Jun, was the first to announce that she was willing to head to Changle City to help Xiao Chun. Following the words of a Peak Master, many disciples also expressed their willingness to head to Changle City. Finally, in just half a day's time, hundreds of golden-winged great rocks flew out from Nine Firmaments Palace. There were at least 10 disciples seated cross-legged on each of the golden-winged great rocks. There were over 1,000 disciples in total, and they began heading towards Changle City, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations, begging for rewards. Chapter 187. The ruler of the continent of the Nine Firmaments didn't give the order. Instead, everyone had volunteered. In just half a day, over 1,000 people had embarked on the journey to Changle City. From this, one could see how terrifying Xiao Chen's influence in Nine Firmaments Palace was. Of the 1,000 people, the majority were ordinary disciples of the Nine Peaks. However, there were no less than 30 Dao children. There were also 40 elders and attendants. There was also one of the Nine Peak Lords, the Peak Lord of Holy Maiden Peak, Su Jin. With such a lineup, destroying Changle City would be an easy task. Due to Xiao Chen's summoning, Nine Firmament Palace's army was approaching. At the same time, Su Chu, who had sent a message to Su Jin, was sitting alone in his study room. There was a dark look on his face as he pondered something. Just like what was said before, Su Jin might be a little unruly, but she wasn't a bad person. She had been deceived by the Su family on many matters. In addition, Su Jin trusted the Su family to begin with, so she didn't think too much about it, which led to the current situation. From the beginning, regarding the matter of Changle City, Su Chu and Su Jin said that the Yin family wanted to annex the Su family, so they asked Su Jin to help. It was also because of Su Chu's instigation that Su Jin was willing to let the Su family pull her tiger skin and force the Yin family into a desperate situation step by step. In Su Jin's opinion, the Su family fought back to protect themselves. However, the reality was that the Su family was ambitious. They wanted to take over the entire Changle City in one fell swoop. He had already received Su Jin's reply. Within 2 days, she and Fenglingyue would return to Changle City. At that moment, Su Chu was thinking about how to get Su Jin to destroy the Yin family. The Yin family has never tried to take revenge on my Su family. Given my little sister's personality, she probably won't do anything to the Yin family. Su Chu thought to himself. After what happened today, Su Chu no longer wanted the Yin family to move out of Changle City. He wanted the Yin family to be completely destroyed. However, in order to do so, he would need Su Jin's help. However, given Su Jin's personality, she probably wouldn't agree. Moreover, if nothing had happened, Su Jin might have found out the truth. If Su Jin knew that everything was because the Su clan wanted to monopolize Changle City and that the Yin clan was the victim, Su Jin would probably not make a move against the Yin clan. Because of the above 2 reasons, Su Chu had to force the Yin family to attack the Su family before Su Jin arrived. It was best to let the Yin family kill one or two of the Su family's lineal descendants. In this way, with his fanning the flames, with Su Jin's character, she would definitely be furious. At that time, the Yin family would be destroyed. But what exactly should he do to make the Yin family unable to control themselves and take action against the Su family? This was the most crucial point. After all, the Yin clan didn't even launch a counterattack when the Su clan was pressuring them. Now, it was even more difficult for the Yin clan to kill the direct descendant of the Su clan. After all, the Yin clan wasn't stupid. Su Chu thought hard. Finally, the scene of the little girl's death today suddenly appeared in his mind. In an instant, a crazy plan appeared in Su Chu's heart. With a cold smile on his face, Su Chu softly muttered to himself, "All right, Yin Kong, don't you think that you are full of righteousness? I will use this to force you. As long as you dare to touch a single person of my Su family, I have a way to completely destroy your Yin family." Finally, he thought of a vicious plan. He thought that this time, he would definitely be able to completely destroy the Yin family. However, at this time, Su Chu didn't realize that it was because of this method of his that caused a massacre that no one could stop in the Su family a few days later. Those who participated in this matter were all killed. It could be said that Su Chu's action had completely destroyed the Su family. Very quickly, a few of the Su family's lineal descendants were summoned. As Su Jin's brother and the Taoist of the Thousand-Weapon Pavilion, Su Chu's position in the Su family was very high. He was publicly recognized as the next Su family head. Therefore, many of the Su family's disciples blindly followed his orders. A total of 7 or 8 people gathered in Su Chu's study. No one knew what they were talking about. It was not until night fell that these 7 or 8 people left one after another. Su Chu looked at the night sky with a dark moon hanging in the sky. A sinister smile hung on the corner of his mouth. The night was silent. This was supposed to be an ordinary night. However, when the next morning arrived, something that made countless people angry happened. At the entrance of the Yin residence, a total of 10 corpses of ordinary citizens of Tranquil City were lined up in a row. A Su family's lineal descendant was standing arrogantly in front of the Yin residence's entrance. He coldly shouted at a group of Yin residence guards, "These people are the role models of your Yin family. There is still one more day. If your Yin family doesn't leave Tranquil City, the people lying here will be your Yin family's people." After he coldly shouted, the Su family's disciples strode away. At the same time, the entire Yin family was abnormally angry because of this matter. The Yin family was not the only ones who were angry. Xiao Chun, who was in the Yin residence, also heard about this matter. He did not wear a mask and sat in the garden with a calm expression. After hearing the ins and outs of the matter from Yin Kong, Xiao Chun coldly said, "10 innocent lives. Good Su family." Yesterday, because of Su Chu's actions, the killing intent was overflowing. Today, the Su family had completely touched Xiao Chen's bottom line. If those 10 people were warriors and died on the battlefield against the Su family, then Xiao Chen would not say anything. However, those 10 people were ordinary people without any cultivation. Facing the Su family, they were not a threat at all. However, the Su family actually killed them. When warriors fought, life and death were up to fate. Death was not a rare thing for warriors. However, as a big family, the Su family actually killed ordinary people who did not even have the strength to truss a chicken. This was really despicable. It was simply insane. Seeing Xiao Chen's cold expression, Yin Kong, who was standing respectfully at the side, also had the same expression. However, as a member of the Yin family, he was more concerned about the Su family's purpose. He had already faintly realized that the matter might not be so simple. Yin Kong whispered, "Brother Xiao Chun, perhaps this matter is not as simple as it seems. This is no longer important. Of course, things can't be as simple as they seem on the surface. Otherwise, the Su family wouldn't have killed someone and brought the body to the door of the Yin family. But I don't want to delve into this now. Su Chu, Su family, very well. I'll remember how many people you've killed. How many innocent people have died in your hands? By then, I'll make up for it with how many direct descendants of the Su family you've killed. Naturally, he felt that the Su family had other purposes. However, Xiao Chun did not want to delve into this. No matter what the Su family's purpose was, he only needed to suppress them. When the time came, no matter how many people the Su family killed, Xiao Chun would make up for it with the lives of the Su family's descendants. Second update: please collect, please vote, please recommend, please reward. Chapter 188. The actions of the Su clan made Xiao Chun furious. At the same time, it also made all the people in Tranquil City furious. However, as ordinary people, they naturally could not go against the Su clan. Hence, many people dared to be angry but did not dare to say anything. At the same time, they secretly prayed that these things would never happen to them and prayed for the blessings of the gods. Under the orders of Xiao Chun, the Yin clan buried the 10 innocent people who had died in vain. However, other than that, the Yin clan did not do anything else and did not seek justice from the Su clan. Originally, they thought that the matter would end like this. However, early the next morning, a total of 100 corpses were placed outside the Yin clan's gate. At the same time, 3 disciples of the Su clan shouted arrogantly. The content of their words was poles apart from yesterday's. Another 100 innocent people were slaughtered overnight. This time, when Xiao Chun received the news, 2 extremely cold, murderous intents suddenly burst out from his eyes. Then, he ordered Yin Kong to kill the 3 direct descendants of the Su clan without hesitation and throw their corpses outside the Su clan's mansion. The Su clan and Su Chu had repeatedly provoked them and killed the innocent. At this time, Xiao Chun also made a counterattack. Hearing Xiao Chun's order, Yin Kong naturally did not dare to oppose. He immediately led a group of experts from the Yin clan and killed the 3 direct descendants of the Su clan, who came to make a scene outside the Yin clan's mansion. Then, he threw their corpses outside the Su clan's mansion. When the Su clan saw the corpses of the 3 disciples, the Su clan was naturally furious. However, Su Chu had a cold smile on his face. They had fallen into a trap. The Yin clan had finally fallen into a trap. In fact, these 3 disciples of the Su clan were specially sent to the Yin clan by Su Chu to be killed by the Yin clan. As expected, the Yin clan killed them. Now that the Yin clan had killed the direct descendants of the Su clan, as long as he waited for Su Jin to return, he would fan the flames a little. Su Jin would definitely not let the Yin clan off. Not only did he use the lives of hundreds of innocent people to force the Yin family, even his own children had become Su Chu's sacrifices. And all of this was just to let Su Jin make a move on the Yin family. Su Chu's plan succeeded, but for his plan, too many innocent people were involved. Such means were vicious, and this was what Xiao Chun despised the most. Therefore, even though Xiao Chun sensed that Su family's actions must have other purposes, he still didn't care about it. In Xiao Chun's heart, he always believed that any conspiracy in the face of absolute strength was just a fleeting cloud. The death of the 3 disciples of the Su family infuriated everyone in the Su family. Some of them even suggested to kill their way to the Yin family and demand an explanation from the Yin family. However, this proposal was quickly stopped by Su Chu. He put in so much effort to create this scene for Su Jin to see. Therefore, before Su Jin returned, the Su family could not make any moves. He persuaded the people of the Su family not to be agitated and to wait for Su Jin to return. Under Su Chu's persuasion, the people of the Su family reluctantly calmed down and promised to wait for Su Jin to return. A mourning hall was set up for the 3 disciples of the Su family. However, they, who had already died, probably did not expect that the Yin clan would dare to kill them. Or rather, they would not believe that Su Chu had actually been using them all along, and the only result for them was to be killed by the Yin clan. Because if the 3 of them did not die, Su Chu's plan would not succeed, and Su Jin would not make a move on the Yin clan. All the people of the Su family were waiting for Su Jin's return in grief and indignation. At the same time, Xiao Chun, who was in the Yin clan, was also waiting for the arrival of the experts of the Nine-Cloud Palace. Indeed, at this time, the peak master of the Saintess Peak, Su Jun, arrived. Su Jun did not come with the main group. She came alone. As a super expert of the Tao Sovereign Realm, her speed was naturally not something that the golden-winged Great Pung Condor could compare with. She directly found Xiao Chun in the Yin clan's mansion. Facing Su Jun's appearance, Xiao Chun respectfully bowed. After briefly explaining the matter of Changle City, Su Jun simply said that everything would be up to Xiao Chun. After all, she was here to help Xiao Chun. With the help of a super expert of the Tao Sovereign Realm, Xiao Chun naturally would not refuse. He asked Yin Kong to arrange a residence for Su Jun. Xiao Chun planned to wait for Su Jin and Feng Lingye's arrival. After all, the Su family was just a small fry. The real problem lay with Su Jin and Feng Lingye. As Xiao Chun was waiting for the arrival of the Nine-Cloud Palace's army, within Nine-Cloud Palace's Heavenly Sword Peak's dustless residence, a young woman in a cyan dress was chatting with Qin Shiru in the garden. The young woman was very beautiful, not at all inferior to Qin Shiru. Not only was she gentle and beautiful, she also exuded a heroic aura. This was the first time Qin Shiru had seen this young woman before. However, the young woman seemed to know Qin Shiru. At the same time, after chatting for a while, Qin Shiru came to know the young woman's identity. She was Xiao Chen's second sister, Long Qing. Long Qing, who was supposed to stay in the All-Beast mountain range, had actually appeared in Nine-Cloud Palace. Additionally, she was only a level 3 Yao Beast, the equivalent of a human at the Earth Mirror stage. Yet, she was already capable of assuming human form, as expected of the true Dragon Clan. A level 3 Yao Beast capable of assuming human form. This was absolutely shocking. Long Qing, who had only just assumed human form, could not wait to come to the Middle Earth Divine region to look for Xiao Chun and Chunling. She did not manage to find out anything about Chunling. However, she had heard a lot about Xiao Chun. Thus, she directly came to Nine-Cloud Palace. As the two women were chatting, a middle-aged man in black clothes suddenly strode in. This middle-aged man was sent by the Yao Beast Empire to protect Long Qing. He was a venerable beast expert. Earlier, this venerable beast expert had gone to pay a visit to the ruler of the Nine Clouds. After all, he had come to Nine-Cloud Palace, and they were Yao beasts. If he did not make his intentions clear, it would be easy for misunderstandings to arise. After expressing his goodwill to the ruler of the Nine Clouds, the venerable beast expert returned. Seeing this, Long Qing stood up and said to Qin Shu, "Let's go, sister-in-law. Let's go to Changle City to look for him." Since she had not seen Xiao Chun in Nine-Cloud Palace, Long Qing planned to head directly to Changle City. In order to meet with Xiao Chun, Long Qing had begged the Beast Emperor for a long time before finally succeeding. Hearing Long Qing's words, Qin Shu nodded slightly. Then, under the guidance of the venerable beast expert, the three of them flew up into the sky and headed towards Changle City. Xiao Chun did not know that Long Qing had left the All-Beast mountain range and come to Nine-Cloud Palace. At that moment, Su Jin and Feng Lingye finally arrived at the Su family's residence in Changle City. The Myriad Arms Pavilion was much closer to Changle City compared to Nine-Cloud Palace. Thus, it was understandable that Su Jin and Feng Lingye would arrive first. After entering the Su family's main gate, Su Jin saw that the entire Su family's residence was covered in white cloth. She frowned slightly. This was something that would only happen after a direct descendant of the Su family had fallen. Without saying anything, Su Jin strode towards the Su family's main hall. Feng Lingye followed behind her with a puzzled look on his face. Third update, brothers, please subscribe, please subscribe, please subscribe. Chapter 189. Su Jin's arrival made everyone in the Su family overjoyed. As Su Jin and Feng Lingye walked into the Su family's main hall, a group of Su family members dressed in mourning clothes quickly greeted them. The one walking in front was naturally the head of the Su family, who was also Su Jin and Su Chu's father, Su Hong. Beside him, Su Chu followed closely with a sorrowful expression. Seeing her father and brother, Su Jin asked, "Father, brother, what happened?" Having just returned to the Su family, Su Jin obviously didn't know much about the Su family's matters. Hearing her words, Su Chu immediately burst into tears. He had prepared so much for this moment. With a sorrowful expression, he said to Su Jin, "Sister, you must protect the Su family. The Yin family is too much. They actually killed Brother Chung and the other two. Moreover, they even said that they would destroy our Su family," Su Chu said sorrowfully. From his mouth, the matter had become that the Yin family wanted to annex the Su family and had already started to act by killing 3 of the Su family's direct descendants. With regards to Su Chu's words, no one in the Su family refuted. It was obvious that they had already discussed and deceived Su Jin in order to monopolize Tranquil City, describing the Yin family as a heinous family. Listening to Su Chu's description, Su Jin's expression turned gloomy. Only Feng Lingye's eyes flashed with a faint trace of doubt. Although everything Su Chu said sounded very organized and seemed to be the same as the reality. After all, the 3 direct descendants of the Su family were indeed dead. However, Feng Lingye felt that there was something wrong with it. Unlike Feng Lingye's shrewdness, Su Jin's character was unruly. At the same time, due to her love for her family, Su Jin was immediately enraged. Her eyes flashed with dense, killing intent. In front of Su Chu and the rest of the Su family, Su Jin coldly shouted, "What a Yin family! You actually want to destroy our Su family. Good, I want to see if you have such good teeth." She didn't even think that Su Chu and the rest were lying to her. She completely believed Su Chu's words. After that, Su Jin personally burned incense and paid respects to the 3 dead direct descendants of the Su family. In the end, seeing Feng Lingye standing there in a daze, Su Jin said in a bad mood, "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and burn incense for my 3 cousins." He already felt that there was something wrong with this matter, but after hearing Su Jin's words, Feng Lingye still followed her instructions and burned incense for the 3 fallen Su family disciples. Facing Su Jin, Feng Lingye could be said to be obedient. This was also the reason why the Su family dared to rely on Su Jin to dominate Tranquil City. As long as Su Jin said something, Feng Lingye would never refuse. It could be said that he was completely obedient to Su Jin. The reason for this was because of their childhood. Feng Lingye's background was actually very miserable. He was an orphan since he was young. As for the young Su Jin, as the young miss of the Su family, Feng Lingye naturally couldn't compare to her. She still remembered that when Feng Lingye was young, he couldn't even afford to eat. The only way to survive was to beg. At that time, not to mention talent or cultivation, just being able to fill one's stomach was already good enough. He remembered that he met Su Jin on a cold winter night. That night, Feng Lingye had a fever. His petite body was curled up under the eaves. He hadn't eaten for 3 days and was starving. Even he himself felt that he couldn't endure it. However, at that moment, Su Jin appeared. She was wearing a beautiful, luxurious dress and had an innocent smile on her face. Looking at Feng Lingye, who was almost unconscious, the first thing she said was, "Hey, little beggar, come home with me. I can take care of you." After hearing Su Jin's words, when Feng Lingye woke up again, he was already in the Su family. Feng Lingye then lived in the Su family and became Su Jin's playmate and servant. The problem of food and clothing was solved. Moreover, in the Su family, Feng Lingye came in contact with martial arts for the first time. From then on, he displayed extraordinary talent. As Feng Lingye's talent completely exploded, his cultivation also rapidly increased. Soon, he attracted the attention of the 10,000 Weapon Pavilion. Then, he successfully entered the 10,000 Weapon Pavilion with Su Jin. Inside the 10,000 Weapon Pavilion, Feng Lingye was like a fish in water. At the same time, his relationship with Su Jin slowly changed. A seed of love that had been planted since they were young slowly sprouted in their hearts. Later on, the two became Tao companions. In the end, When Feng became one of the 10 prides, he proposed marriage to the Su clan and officially married Su Jin into his family. Because of this experience between the two, Feng could be said to be very protective of Su Jin. This was because in his most difficult and most helpless times, it was Su Jin who helped him. It was also because of Su Jin that he came in contact with martial arts. Otherwise, with his identity as an orphan, even if he had peerless talent, what use would it be? In Feng heart, Su Jin was his wife. She was the woman who accompanied him through the lowest point of his life. In this life, he would not let her down. This was the vow in Feng's heart. Now that he was one of the 10 great prides, Feng had indeed fulfilled this vow. He gave the best he could to Su Jin and only hoped that she could be happy. Therefore, no matter what requests Su Jin made, as long as it was within his ability, Feng would not refuse. Listening to Su Jin's words, he lit incense for the 3 deceased Su family disciples. Then, Su Jin directly led the Su family to kill the Yin family. She wanted the Yin family to give an explanation. Otherwise, she would directly exterminate the Yin family. Hearing Su Jin's words, the Su family naturally raised their arms and cheered, especially Su Chu, who sneered in his heart. Only Feng frowned and whispered to Su Jin, "Wife, I'm afraid this matter isn't that simple. Why don't we investigate further? The Yin family has already killed their way to our door. What's there to investigate? Feng let me ask you one thing. Are you going or not? If not, I'll go by myself." Hearing Feng words, Su Jin's unruly temper immediately flared up. She angrily shouted at Feng Actually, Su Jin wasn't a person with bad intentions. But because of the environment she grew up in, Su Jin's personality was very unruly and willful. Thinking about it, as the Su family's little princess since young, she naturally wouldn't be bullied. And after going to the 10,000 weapon pavilion, she had Feng one of the 10 pride's kings, as her husband. No one dared to provoke her. This caused Su Jin to almost never suffer any losses since young. Everything had always been smooth sailing. So in Su Jin's opinion, everyone in the world probably had to give in to her. Just by relying on Feng it was enough to suppress many people. However, Su Jin clearly neglected one point. Even though Feng status was extremely high and no one dared to provoke him in the entire heavenly Qin continent, he wasn't invincible. Among the younger generation, there were at least 9 people who could compete with Feng 4th update: seeking collection, seeking recommendation, seeking monthly votes, seeking reward. Chapter 190. Because of her unruly personality, Su Jin was naturally enraged when she heard that Feng wanted to stop her. He had already bullied her to the point of no return. From Su Jin's point of view, this was unbearable. After reprimanding, she no longer paid attention to Feng She led the group of Su family members and Su Jin out in large strides. Looking at everyone's backs, Feng helplessly sighed slightly and then followed behind. Although he felt that there was something wrong with the situation, he had no choice since Su Jin refused to listen to him. Besides, Feng couldn't just ignore Su Jin. From Feng point of view, even if what Su Jin did was wrong, he had to stay by her side. The Su family majestically marched towards the Yin residence. At the same time, the Yin residents naturally received news that Su Jin and Feng had returned to Changle City. In Xiao Chen's courtyard, Yin Kong truthfully told Xiao Chen about the situation. Hearing that Su Jin and Feng led a group of Su family members over aggressively, Xiao Chen expressionlessly said, "I hope that Feng can distinguish between right and wrong. Otherwise, this wouldn't be a simple sparring between 2 proud kings. It would be a life and death battle." Xiao Chen then turned to Yin Kong and said, "Let's go out and greet the people from the Su family. We do need an explanation, but it's not the Yin family. It's the Su family that should give us an explanation." They weren't the slightest bit alarmed by the Su family's arrival because Xiao Chen was currently overseeing the Yin residence. With Xiao Chen around, the Yin family naturally didn't fear Feng Lingye. Many members of the Yin family had already gathered in the main courtyard of the Yin family. Very quickly, the members of the Su family also arrived under the lead of Su Jin. They aggressively barged in and saw that the members of the Yin family were already waiting here. Seeing this, Su Jin immediately shouted angrily, "Today, the Yin family must give me an explanation. Otherwise, I will flatten the Yin family." Without wasting any time, she went straight to the point and demanded an explanation from the Yin family. Hearing Su Jin's words, Xiao Chun, who was wearing a mask, slowly walked out and looked straight at Su Jin. Explanation? What explanation does the Yin family need? On the other hand, the Su family should give an explanation to the citizens of Tranquil City. Impudent! Who are you? Do you have the right to speak here? Hearing Xiao Chen's words, before Su Jin could speak, Su Chu already shouted. In Chu's eyes, Xiao Chun was just a subordinate of the family. Who had the right to speak? Xiao Chun completely ignored Su Chu's angry shouts. His eyes were still locked on Su Jin. Facing Xiao Chen's gaze, Su Jin didn't know why, but she suddenly felt a chill from the bottom of her heart. Fortunately, Feng Lingye came to her side in time, allowing Su Jin to calm down. With Feng Lingye by her side, Su Jin's confidence increased by quite a bit. She once again coldly shouted, "Your Yin clan killed 3 of my direct descendants, yet you still want us to give you an explanation. You've gone too far. Since that's the case, there's no need to say anything more. Today, my Su clan will flatten your Yin clan." Su Jin's spoiled temper completely flared up. However, Feng Lingye had been observing Xiao Chun from start to finish. Although he was wearing a mask and trying his best to conceal his aura, Feng Lingye could still keenly sense a familiar feeling coming from Xiao Chun. Feng Lingye's frown deepened as he stared at Xiao Chun. At the same time, Xiao Chun was also a little angry at Su Jin's indiscriminate attitude. He originally wanted to have a good talk with Feng Lingye. However, it seemed that there was no need for that now. As one of the 10 prided kings, the pride in Xiao Chen's heart could be imagined. Since you don't want to listen, then I won't waste my breath. If you want to fight, then let's fight. The atmosphere gradually became tense. Seeing that the battle between the 2 families was about to erupt, Feng Lingye finally guessed Xiao Chen's identity and bitterly smiled. "Brother Xiao Chun, I didn't expect to meet you here." From the first glance, Feng Lingye felt that Xiao Chun was familiar. Until now, he had finally guessed Xiao Chen's identity. Hearing this, Su Jin was stunned. Everyone in the Su family was also stunned. Seeing that his identity had been seen through, Xiao Chen no longer hid. He took off his mask and revealed his true appearance. However, although Xiao Chen's expression was calm, the coldness in his eyes did not diminish in the slightest. He looked at Feng Lingye and said indifferently, "Brother Feng, are you here to stand up for the Su family?" Xiao Chen's appearance stunned everyone in the Su family. The reason why the Su family could suppress the Yin family was because of Feng Lingye, the king of prides. Now, the Yin family also had the protection of a king of prides. As such, this matter was rather troublesome. Because of Su Jin, Xiao Chen's mood wasn't too good. Hearing this, Feng Lingye helplessly smiled bitterly. "Brother Xiao Chun, Jin, and I have just arrived in Tranquil City. We don't know much about what happened before. However, Jin was anxious because her family was killed. That's why she rashly rushed over. If there's something we don't know, I hope that Brother Xiao Chun can tell us." Feng Lingye knew that things weren't that simple. At this moment, he clearly didn't want to become enemies with Xiao Chun. However, just as Feng Lingye finished speaking, before Xiao Chun could speak, Su Jin spoke first. "Xiao Chun, so what if you're the king of prides? A life for a life. A debt must be repaid with money. This is an eternal principle. The Yin family killed 3 people from my Su family. Today, no matter what the reason is, the Yin family must pay with their lives." She didn't give Xiao Chun a chance to explain. Hearing this, Xiao Chun looked deeply at Su Jin. From Feng Lingye's words, Xiao Chun had already guessed that Su Jin probably didn't know much of the truth. Even so, Su Jin's attitude made Xiao Chun very unhappy. He originally wanted to explain, but Xiao Chun completely dispelled this idea. A life for a life. Well said. Since you said so, the Su family can pay with their lives. At least take out 110 lives as compensation. Xiao Chun coldly stared at Su Jin and said indifferently, "A life for a life." Well said. Since the Su family had killed more than 100 innocent people, the Su family could pay with their lives. He didn't give Su Jin any face. Hearing this, Su Jin was completely enraged. She didn't think about anything else and directly shouted at Feng Lingye, "Feng Lingye, kill him for me." She directly ordered Feng Lingye to do it. Hearing Su Jin's words, Feng Lingye shook his head and smiled bitterly. This silly girl really didn't know anything. Xiao Chun was the king of prides. Killing him was easier said than done. Even if Feng Lingye was also a king of prides, to kill Xiao Chun, not to mention whether he could succeed or not, in the end, both sides would suffer. In the end, it wasn't certain who would kill who. At the Thousand Island Lake, the strength that Xiao Chun displayed made Feng Lingye extremely fearful. Fifth update. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation, begging for rewards. Chapter 191. She directly asked Feng Lingye to kill Xiao Chun. This sentence thoroughly reflected Su Jin's unruly and ignorant nature. She was unruly because she didn't listen to any explanation. She only thought that the Yin family had to pay the price for the death of a Su family disciple. She was ignorant because she actually thought that Feng Lingye could kill Xiao Chun. It was simply ridiculous. Everyone was a king of pride. What right did Feng Lingye have to kill Xiao Chun? Even Xiao Chun burst into laughter after hearing this. Ha ha! All along, Xiao Chun thought that it was normal for a woman to have a temper. Even if she was unreasonable at times, it didn't matter. But now, after witnessing Su Jin's unruly behavior, Xiao Chun finally understood what it meant to be unreasonable. She only thought about herself and thought that she was right. Everyone else should give in to her. Even if it was a matter of life and death, she could use her unruly behavior to distort the truth unreasonably in order to achieve her goal. At the same time, the peak master of Saintess Peak, Su Jun, appeared in front of Xiao Chun. When Feng Lingye saw Su Jun, he didn't hesitate to pull Su Jin away. Feng Lingye had seen Su Jun's portrait in the Myriad Weapon Pavilion. He knew that she was one of the 9 peak masters of 9 Firmaments Palace, a Dao sovereign expert. Now that Su Jun had appeared, there was no chance of winning this battle. As long as Xiao Chun wanted to, he and Su Jin had no chance of survival. Therefore, Feng Lingye chose to retreat without hesitation. He forcefully brought Su Jin away from the Yin family. Seeing this, everyone in the Su family naturally flocked to escape. What a joke! With their backbone gone, how could they dare to stay and go against Xiao Chun? He didn't stop to rest along the way. Ignoring Su Jin's angry shouts, he carried Su Jin and ran back to the Su family. Only when they reached the Su family's main hall did Feng Lingye put Su Jin down. At this time, Su Jin didn't think much of it and immediately scolded Feng Lingye. "Feng Lingye, what are you doing?" "Wife, that woman just now is the peak master of 9 Firmament Palaces, Saintess Peak. She's a Dao sovereign expert. If we attack, no one in the Su family will be able to return." Feng Lingye smiled bitterly in the face of Su Jin's scolding. After learning about Su Jin's identity from Feng Lingye, Su Jin finally calmed down. Seeing this, Feng Lingye seized the opportunity and said, "Wife, I think there might be some hidden secrets in this matter. How about we investigate it first?" Feng Lingye did not wish to become enemies with Xiao Chun. At the same time, there was something fishy about this matter. Hearing Feng Lingye's words, Su Jin chose to remain silent. At the same time, back in the Yin family, Xiao Chun watched as the cultivators from his Su family fled. He did not stop them. The majority of 9 Firmaments Palace's forces had yet to arrive. It was not yet time for him to attack the Su family. Additionally, Xiao Chun wanted to give Feng Lingye one last chance. In the end, he gave Feng Lingye another chance. However, Feng Lingye's final choice left Xiao Chen helpless. At the same time, he pushed the Su family to the brink of destruction. He began to investigate the truth of the matter. For this matter, the truth was not difficult to investigate. He only needed to visit Changle City, and he would naturally find out the truth. In just a short 2 hours, Feng Lingye had figured out the whole story. It turned out that it was the Su clan who wanted to annex the Yin clan from the very beginning. The reason why Xiao Chen killed the 3 direct descendants of the Su clan was because they had killed innocent people. As for Su Jin, she had been used by the Su clan from the very beginning. After learning the truth, Feng Lingye flew into a rage and told the truth to Su Jin. At the same time, the Su family's patriarch, Su Hong, and Su Chu were also called over for questioning. In the study, Su Chu knelt in front of Su Jin and kowtowed to admit her mistake. Sister, I was wrong. I was really wrong. However, everything I did was for the sake of the family. I also wanted the family to reach a higher level. I didn't have any selfish motives. Since the matter was exposed, Su Chu could only play the emotional card. However, Feng Lingye coldly shouted in response. For the Su clan? Su Chu, for the Su clan, you could distort the truth and kill innocent people? The anger in her heart could be imagined. However, facing Su Chu, who was kneeling and crying, Su Jin's heart softened. Seeing that his sister's expression had eased, Su Chu continued to add fuel to the fire and incited Su Jin to destroy the Yin clan. Although the Yin clan had now received Xiao Chen's help, Feng Lingye was not someone to be trifled with. After adding fuel to the fire, Su Chu actually succeeded in igniting the anger in Su Jin's heart. After all, no matter what, the 3 direct descendants of the Su clan had died in the hands of the Yin clan. This was an indisputable fact. Su Chu begged bitterly, sowing discord and fanning the flames. As the father, Su Hong also agreed. Facing her father and brother, in the end, Su Jin actually decided to make a move against the Yin clan. Even if there was Xiao Chen, even if the truth was not like what Su Chu said before, Su Jin still wanted to avenge her 3 cousins. In the end, because of Su Chu's words, Su Jin finally made up her mind. Su Chu said solemnly, Sister, I have never asked you for anything since young. However, this time, I am begging you. Since you have the ability, why don't you let the Su clan completely dominate Changle City? The Su clan is also your clan. Don't you want to see the Su clan grow stronger? Although Xiao Chen is now on the Yin clan side, if the Lihua Proud King makes a move, then Xiao Chen will definitely not fight to the death with the Su clan. Sister, please do this for the Su clan. Jin promise your brother. In the future, the Su clan's patriarch position will also be your brother. Don't you want to give your brother a good future? After Su Chu's voice fell, Su Hong also opened his mouth. Her father and brother tried their best to persuade her. In the end, Su Jin made up her mind. After calming down, she also guessed that Xiao Chen would not fight to the death with Feng Lingye for the Yin clan. In this way, with Feng Lingye's strength, it would be easy for him to destroy the Yin clan. After making a decision, Su Jin sent her father and brother away and came to Feng Lingye. Feng Lingye already knew what Su Jin was going to say. He sighed helplessly and said, Jin you are gambling. Jin you're taking a gamble. The Su family was already in the wrong. If you do this, you'll be making more mistakes. You think that Xiao Chen won't fight me to the death for the Yin family, but if Xiao Chen really fights me to the death for the Yin family, do you know what kind of situation this will cause? Su Jin's decision was simply ridiculously wrong. Feng Lingye was helpless. After hearing Feng Lingye's words, Su Jin said with tears streaming down her face, Husband, I know this is wrong, but please let Jin be willful one more time. Help the Su clan one last time. Xiao Chen is the proud king. It is impossible for him to fight to the death with you for the Yin clan. Help my brother take over the entire Changle City and let him live a happy life. From today onwards, I will no longer care about the Su clan. Husband Jiner begs you. 6th update. Please bookmark, recommend, reward, monthly vote. Chapter 192. Su Jin also knew that the Su family was in the wrong from the beginning to the end. And at this moment, the decision she made was a mistake on top of a mistake. However, facing the request of her father and brother, Su Jin really couldn't refuse. Her brother, Su Chu, was different from her. She had a proud husband and didn't care about the Su family's patriarch position. Su Jin's future was the entire heavenly Chun continent, and Su Chu's future was to inherit the patriarch position. Since even her father had spoken, Su Jin's thoughts were very simple. She only hoped that her brother could live a happy life. For this, Su Jin didn't hesitate to make a mistake on top of a mistake. It was a very simple thought, but it also fully reflected Su Jin's willfulness. At this moment, in her heart, there was no right or wrong. There was only one last thing she wanted to do for her brother, something that might make Su Chu happy for the rest of his life. Facing Su Jin's request, Feng Lingye, who would never refuse, fell into silence at this moment. If it was any other matter, Feng Lingye would definitely agree without hesitation. But this matter had already gone against morality. Moreover, if he wasn't careful, it would be out of control. Seeing that Feng Lingye was silent, Su Jin directly knelt in front of Feng Lingye. 2 streaks of tears flowed down her eyes, and her voice was choked with sobs. Husband, Jiner knows that this matter is wrong. But to my brother, this is the best future Jin can give him. Jiner begs you just this once the last time. After this, Jiner will definitely not care about the Su family's matters. Facing Su Jin's appearance, Feng Lingye remained silent for a moment before he finally let out a sigh. Forget it, forget it. Since young, Su Jin had never begged him like this. Moreover, Feng Lingye also knew the reason why Su Jin did this. Although this reason was very willful, although this reason would cause the destruction of the innocent Yin family, Feng Lingye really couldn't refuse Su Jin. From the bottom of his heart, Feng Lingye was unwilling to agree. But facing Su Jin, facing the irreplaceable love in his heart, and facing the fact that he couldn't bear to see Su Jin cry, Feng Lingye finally agreed. As a man, Feng Lingye's love for Su Jin was indeed admirable. This kind of man was indeed worthy of being entrusted with her life. However, as a proud monarch, Feng Lingye had already lost his calm judgment. His decision had directly led to the situation developing out of control. After agreeing to Su Jin's request, Feng Lingye allowed Su Jin to rest while he sat alone in the study, deep in thought. Even though he knew this was wrong, Feng Lingye still agreed in the end. After several hours of contemplation, Feng Lingye finally used a sound transmitting talisman to send a letter back to the 10,000 weapon pavilion. Just like Xiao Chun, Feng Lingye had also requested help from the myriad weapon pavilion. After receiving Feng Lingye's message, many disciples of the myriad weapon pavilion responded and rushed to Tranquil City overnight. Dao children, ordinary disciples, elders, attendants, a total of over 1,000 people. Their scale was in no way inferior to 9 Firmament's palaces. They rushed to Tranquil City overnight. At the same time, a vice pavilion master of the myriad weapon pavilion personally took action. Just like how Heavenly Dan Valley had 9 Vice Valley Masters and 9 Firmament Palace had 9 Peak Masters, the Myriad Weapon Pavilion also had 9 Vice Pavilion Masters. Their cultivation bases were also at the Dao Sovereign stage. In order to fulfill Su Jin's request and to minimize the losses, Feng Lingye planned to use his strongest force to instantly destroy the Yin family. Before Xiao Chun could react, the Yin family must be destroyed instantly. That way, even if Xiao Chun was enraged, it would be useless. This way, the situation would be under his control. At the same time, the Su family would not have to pay any price. They could do everything themselves. Feng Lingye's plan was indeed perfect. If Xiao Chun had not sent a message back to 9 Firmament Palace in advance, and if 9 Firmament Palace's army was not on their way to Tranquil City, then Feng Lingye's plan could indeed destroy the Yin family in one fell swoop. Unfortunately, 9 Firmament Palace's army was already on their way. Feng Lingye had already lost the opportunity to instantly destroy the Yin family. His actions caused the armies of the two great powers to erupt in an earth-shattering battle outside Tranquil City. Unaware of all this, the Myriad Weapon Pavilion's army could reach Tranquil City in one day if they rushed at full speed. Sitting in the study, Feng Lingye rubbed his temples in irritation. There was an inexplicable irritation that Feng Lingye had nowhere to vent. The things that he didn't want to do, he had no choice but to do because of love. Feng Lingye's decision could only be said to be out of love. At the same time, it was also stupid. A shocking battle that could have been resolved was about to erupt because of Su Jin's willfulness and Feng Lingye's ignorance. While Feng Lingye was making his decision, Xiao Chun, who had yet to fall asleep, was chatting with Su Jun in the garden of the Yin family. There were some exquisite pastries and fruits placed in front of them. At the same time, there was also a pot of fine wine. They were casually drinking and chatting. Seeing Xiao Chun, who seemed to be absent-minded the entire night, Su Jun asked, "What's wrong? You seem to be absent-minded the entire night." As the Peak Master of Holy Maiden Peak and a Dao Sovereign Expert, Su Jun did not put on any airs in front of Xiao Chun. Hearing Su Jun's words, Xiao Chun calmly replied, "It's nothing. I just have a bad feeling in my heart. It feels like something big is about to happen. Is it about the Su family?" There should be no need to worry about that. 9 Firmaments Palace's army will arrive in one day. When that time comes, even if Feng Lingye is there, you can instantly suppress him, Su Jun replied. There was no need to worry too much about the Su family. Naturally, Xiao Chun and Su Jun did not know that Feng Lingye had also mobilized many experts from the Myriad Weapon Pavilion and was rushing towards Tranquil City. It was no longer possible for Feng Lingye to instantly exterminate the Yin family. Similarly, it was also impossible for Xiao Chun to directly suppress Feng Lingye. The two prided kings had already mobilized many experts from their respective forces. Unbeknownst to both sides, the two armies would soon meet in Tranquil City. A great battle was unavoidable. Even Xiao Chun and Feng Lingye could no longer hold back. Xiao Chun's intuition made him feel very uncomfortable. He kept having the feeling that something big was about to happen. However, no matter how he thought about it, he could not figure out what it was. Naturally, Xiao Chun had never thought that Feng Lingye would mobilize the Myriad Weapon Pavilion's army to rush towards Tranquil City. In Xiao Chun's opinion, Feng Lingye was not such a stupid person. However, because of love, Feng Lingye was stupid for once. For the first time in his life, he did something extremely stupid. 7th update, seeking to collect, seeking to recommend, seeking to reward, seeking monthly votes. Chapter 193. Feng Lingye's decision made the war unavoidable. After a night of silence, the Vice Pavilion Master of the Myriad Weapon Pavilion arrived at Tranquil City at noon the next day. As for the others, they would arrive by evening at the latest. In the Myriad Weapon Pavilion, Feng Lingye's rallying power was similar to Xiao Chen's in 9 Firmaments Palace. Feng Lingye didn't feel the slightest bit happy when faced with the arrival of so many experts from the Myriad Weapon Pavilion. After all, this wasn't his original intention. In the end, this was just a stupid decision he made. Feng Lingye was very calm, but Su Chu was overjoyed. When he thought of the Yin family being destroyed and his Su family dominating Tranquil City, Su Chu couldn't help but feel excited. Time passed slowly. When dusk approached, the 10,000 Weapon Pavilion's army was already within reach of Tranquil City. At this moment, Feng Lingye brought Su Jin and the Vice Pavilion Master of the 10,000 Weapon Pavilion to the Yin residence once again. In the Yin family's main hall, Xiao Chun and Su Jin saw Feng Lingye and the Vice Pavilion Master. When he saw the Vice Pavilion Master appear beside Feng Lingye, a strange glint flashed across Xiao Chen's eyes. He seemed to have guessed something in his heart. Sitting opposite each other, the atmosphere was somewhat oppressive. After a moment of silence, Feng Lingye was the first to speak. "Brother Xiao Chun, don't worry about the Yin family's matters. Consider it as me owing you a favor. In the future, I will repay you greatly. How about it?" Even now, Feng Lingye didn't want to become enemies with Xiao Chun. He planned to persuade Xiao Chun to give up at the last moment. However, after hearing Feng Lingye's words, Xiao Chun sneered. His tone was somewhat cold as he said, "This is your choice? After knowing the whole story, you still want to help the Su family destroy the Yin family?" Xiao Chun believed that Feng Lingye already knew the ins and outs of the matter. But in the face of the Su family's pressure and the Su family's indiscriminate slaughter of the innocent, Feng Lingye still chose to help the Su family in the end. This caused a faint trace of anger to appear in Xiao Chen's heart. Feng Ling didn't know right from wrong. Feng Lingye's choice made Xiao Chen extremely disappointed. Feng Lingye revealed a bitter expression and laughed self-deprecatingly. Feng Lingye couldn't even tell right from wrong at the most basic level, so he was unable to tell right from wrong. Brother Xiao Chun, how can it be so easy to determine who is right and who is wrong in this world? I have my own difficulties, and I don't expect Brother Xiao Chun to understand. I only hope that Brother Xiao Chun can give me face and not interfere in this matter. Feng Lingye tried his best to persuade Xiao Chun not to interfere in this matter. In response, Xiao Chun immediately laughed out loud. He stood up and looked down at Feng Lingye, who had a complicated expression on his face. Then, Xiao Chun loudly shouted, "What is right and wrong in this world? Feng Lingye, I really overestimated you before. Perhaps you're right. The right and wrong of this world isn't something that can be determined so easily. Moreover, there's no such thing as absolute justice and fairness in this world," Feng Lingye said with a smile. "However, we cultivators should have our pride. The Su family's actions, regardless of whether it's right or wrong, are simply shameful to the extreme. I, Xiao Chun, am not a saint to begin with. I can't care so much about injustice. But now that I'm in the Yin family, I'll take care of this matter. If you insist on continuing to make mistakes, then let's fight." Feng Lingye's choice angered Xiao Chun. He couldn't understand why Feng Lingye, as a king of pride, would make such a foolish decision. He clearly knew that it was wrong, but he still insisted on continuing to make mistakes. Xiao Chun loudly shouted. As soon as he finished speaking, a surge of battle intent rose from Xiao Chen's body. Seeing this, Feng Lingye's heart was incomparably bitter. Long before he came, he had already guessed that it was impossible for Xiao Chun to let go of this matter. He sighed softly. Since persuasion didn't work, then he could only follow his plan. He would take down Xiao Chun first, then destroy the Yin family. As long as the Yin family was destroyed, Xiao Chun would be powerless to reverse the situation. He also slowly stood up. At the same time, Su Jun and the vice pavilion master of the Myriad Weapon Pavilion faced each other. The two Dao sovereigns stood firmly beside their respective kings of pride. At this moment, the air seemed to have become heavy. Feng Lingye looked at Xiao Chun with a complicated expression, then slowly opened his mouth and said, "Brother Xiao Chun, don't blame me. I have my own difficulties. Sorry for the offense." As soon as Feng Lingye finished speaking, over 100 black geese flew from the horizon and arrived in the sky above Tranquil City. Atop these black geese were over 1,000 disciples and elders of the Myriad Weapon Pavilion who stood solemnly. With so many experts from the Myriad Weapon Pavilion appearing in Tranquil City, it naturally attracted the attention of countless people. When they realized that these people's target was the Yin family, many cultivators in Tranquil City shook their heads helplessly. It seemed that the world was about to change. The backer of the Su family, King Li Hua Jiao Feng Lingye, had taken action personally. Under such a lineup, the Yin family had no way of resisting. It seemed that the Yin family's destruction was a foregone conclusion. The experts from the 10,000 Weapon Pavilion had appeared. At the same time, Xiao Chun was also slightly taken aback at the sight of so many experts from the 10,000 Weapon Pavilion. Even Xiao Chun himself did not expect Feng Lingye to go to such an extent. He did not hesitate to mobilize such a lineup of experts from the 10,000 Weapon Pavilion just to destroy the Yin clan. After a brief moment of shock, Xiao Chun looked at Feng Lingye with a calm gaze. This guy was determined to destroy the Yin family. "Brother Xiao Chun, you can't protect the Yin family. Let go." Feng Lingye said indifferently under Xiao Chen's gaze. Hearing Feng Lingye's words, Xiao Chen smiled coldly and said, "Is that so? Then let's see if it's me who can't protect the Yin family or you who can't protect the Su family." There was nothing more to say. Just as Xiao Chen's voice fell, a loud eagle cry rang out. Then, everyone saw that from another direction, hundreds of golden-winged great pung eagles were flying over Tranquil City. Soon, they arrived in front of the experts from the Myriad Weapon Pavilion. Both sides were mounted on golden-winged great pung eagles and black geese, facing each other. On top of the golden-winged great pung eagles were the experts from the Nine Firmament Palace. After 3 days of rushing, they finally arrived at Tranquil City. Following the arrival of the experts from the Nine Firmaments Palace, Feng Lingye's heart sank. It's over. When did Xiao Chun contact the Nine Firmaments Palace? Now that the experts from both sides had gathered, his plan to destroy the Yin family in an instant had completely failed. Furthermore, the situation was developing in an unimaginable direction, completely out of Feng Lingye's control. Not only Feng Lingye, but Su Jin's face was also incomparably pale. She never thought that things would turn out like this. Just as the two of them were still in shock, Xiao Chen's voice slowly rang out. "Feng Lingye, I've said it before. If you want to fight, I'll fight with you. Fellow senior brothers, please lend me a hand and repel the Myriad Weapon Pavilion." 8th update. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations, begging for rewards. Chapter 194. Fellow senior brothers, help me. Following Xiao Chen's words, the cultivators from Nine Firmaments Palace shouted in unison. King Jiao is too courteous. They had come here to help Xiao Chun. Although their opponent had changed to the Myriad Arms Pavilion, since Xiao Chun had spoken, they would not show any fear. Besides, the disciples of Nine Firmaments Palace were not afraid of the Myriad Arms Pavilion. Both sides were equal in strength. Neither side feared the other. It did not take long for the experts from the two overlord forces to engage in an intense battle. Nine Firmaments Palace took the initiative to attack. Naturally, the Myriad Arms Pavilion would not just sit there and wait for death. A great battle broke out. Elders against elders, Dao children against Dao children, and ordinary disciples against ordinary disciples. Everyone had chosen their opponents, and an intense battle broke out in the sky above Tranquil City. When the battle broke out, in order to avoid harming the innocent, both sides intentionally set the battlefield outside the city. As for the Taoists, deacons, and elders, they could fly in the air. Thus, the battle was naturally set in the sky. The ordinary disciples were fighting outside the city. In the sky above Tranquil City, tens of battlefield were constantly emitting terrifying shockwaves from the battle. Seeing the battle break out, Feng Lingye looked at Xiao Chun with a complicated expression. "Brother Xiao Chun, are you really going to disregard the consequences for the sake of the Yin family?" In Feng Lingye's opinion, Xiao Chun had gone mad. For the sake of the Yin family, he had actually escalated the situation into a bloody battle between two overlord forces. In the face of Feng Lingye's question, Xiao Chun replied coldly, "Brother Feng, aren't you also disregarding the consequences for the sake of the Su family?" Feng Lingye retorted mercilessly. Hearing that, Feng Lingye fell silent. Xiao Chun continued, "Since it has come to this, there is no need for unnecessary words. Brother Feng, if you want to fight, then bring it on. Today I, Xiao Chun, will seek justice for the people of Tranquil City who died unjustly." As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Chun took the initiative to attack. He pointed his finger and directly used the Chun Jun sword finger. Sword light flashed. Seeing this, Feng Lingye's gaze turned cold. He knew that things had gotten out of hand. Although he regretted it, there was nothing he could do. He could only resist. An intense battle broke out between the two great prides. This time around, it was no ordinary sparring session. It was a true life and death battle. At the same time, Su Jun smiled towards the vice pavilion master of the 10,000 weapon pavilion as she looked at the two of them engaged in an intense battle. "Old man Feng, Let's exchange a few blows as well." Then, the two great Tao masters soared into the sky, and a great battle broke out in the clouds. Looking at Chang'e City that was completely engulfed in the flames of war, Su Jin was a little dazed. She had never thought that things would develop to this point because of her willful request. If she had not forced Feng yet to take action, this battle could have been avoided. However, it was clearly too late to say that now. The intense battle between the two sides was slowly becoming more and more intense. It should be known that as Overlord-class forces, 9 Firmament's Palace and 10,000 Weapon Pavilion would inevitably have some small conflict between them. Some of the disciples even had quite a bit of hatred between them. Now that there was an opportunity, both sides seemed to have found a channel to vent their frustrations. Therefore, they did not show any mercy and went all out. Ever since she was young, this was the first time Su Jin felt flustered. She did not know how to end this. Perhaps there was no way to end this unless a victor was decided. However, once a victor was decided, it would mean that someone would die. This was not the result she wanted to see. Su Jin was not the only one. In the Su family's mansion, the Su family's patriarch, Su Heng, and the Su family's young master, Su Chu, stared blankly at the sky. Su Heng muttered to himself, "How can this be? How can this be? Didn't King Bewitching's sword not support the Yin family? How did things turn out like this?" Hearing his father's words, Su Chu's face turned complicated. The situation had completely exceeded his expectations. Previously, he had guessed that if Feng Lingye were to take action, Xiao Chun would not fight to the death of the Yin family. However, at this very moment, Su Chu's guess was proven wrong. It was a complete mess. The development of the situation had exceeded everyone's expectations. Many people, including Su Chu, were now regretting their decision. The eruption of the battle had caused the situation to blow up. It had even escalated to the point where the two Overlord-class forces were fighting for supremacy. Because of a small matter, or rather, because of a woman's willfulness, the two kings of pride and the forces behind them erupted into an intense conflict. At this very moment, Xiao Chun and Feng Lingye were engaged in an intense battle. Unlike when they were sparring, neither Xiao Chun nor Feng Lingye held back. Dragon Spring Sword Finger. With a low roar, Xiao Chun pointed out with his finger. The second Dragon Spring Sword Finger was instantly executed. The roar of a dragon resounded through the sky as a cyan dragon shadow suddenly rushed out. After breaking through to the Earth Mirror Realm, the power of the Dragon Spring Sword Finger was naturally much stronger. Facing the attack of the Dragon Spring Sword Finger, Feng Lingye struck out with his palm. A fiery red palm, formed from spiritual energy, collided with the Dragon Spring Sword Finger. The two collided head-on and canceled each other out. At the same time, a small flame appeared on Feng Lingye's palm. Although it was just a small flame, the aura it emitted made Xiao Chun feel danger. His expression changed as Xiao Chun whispered to himself, "Heavenly fire?" Feng Lingye also possessed a heavenly fire. In fact, both blacksmiths and alchemists needed a spiritual fire. Furthermore, the division of spiritual fire was the same. As the king of pride of the myriad weapon pavilion, it was normal for Feng Lingye to possess a heavenly fire. Seeing Feng Lingye unleash his heavenly fire, a white flame appeared on Xiao Chen's palm. It was also a heavenly fire. Both of them possessed a heavenly fire. At the same time, they flicked their fingers and shouted, "Go!" 2 balls of heavenly fire instantly shot out from their hands and collided fiercely in the air. The 2 balls of heavenly fire, which were only the size of a fingernail, collided fiercely. With a boom, they formed a raging sea of fire that directly enveloped the entire Yin family's main courtyard. It was as if they were in a sea of fire. Xiao Chun and Feng Lingye's heavenly fire were constantly colliding with each other. The collision between the heavenly fire seemed invisible, but it was extremely dangerous. Because if one side's heavenly fire was defeated, then its owner would definitely be buried in the sea of fire. From the beginning of the battle until now, it had only been a few hundred breaths of time. The two had already used all their means, even their heavenly fire. Standing proudly in the sea of fire, Shao Chun had already unsheathed his scarlet-edged sword. Unsheathing his sword, he said indifferently, "Feng Lingye, today, the Su family must pay the price for their actions. Even you can't protect the Su family." Ninth update, please collect, please vote, please recommend, please reward. Chapter 195. With the scarlet-edged sword in hand, Shao Chun didn't give Feng Lingye another chance. Seeing this, Feng Lingye didn't dare to be careless either. He also summoned his own earth weapon, a fiery red saber. As a disciple of the myriad weapon pavilion, Feng Lingye's saber was personally refined by the myriad weapon sovereign. Its power wasn't any weaker than the scarlet-edged sword. It was also a top-grade earth weapon. The saber and sword collided in a fierce battle. Both of them had raised their strength to the peak. Sword light whistled and saber shadows filled the sky. This was the first time the two had fought. Facing Feng Lingye, Shao Chun had to admit that his combat strength was pretty good. His saber technique was also incomparably sharp. However, when it came to saber techniques, Shao Chun had never seen anyone stronger than Feng Lingye among his peers. Even if it was Feng Lingye compared to Chun Ling, he was still slightly weaker. As the fierce battle continued, Feng Lingye's expression gradually became more and more solemn. Although he had maintained a high level of vigilance and attentiveness towards Shao Chun from beginning to end, Feng Lingye had to admit that he had still underestimated Shao Chun after the real fight. Indeed, Shao Chun was worthy of being hailed as the leader of the 10 Great Prides. His comprehension of sword techniques couldn't be said to be flawless, but it was definitely unfathomable. The seemingly ordinary sword techniques in Shao Chun's hands had so many variations that it made Feng Lingye feel a chill. In Feng Lingye's opinion, Shao Chun's sword techniques had already surpassed many experts of the older generation. Gradually being suppressed by Shao Chun, Feng Lingye slowly fell into a disadvantage. He could only defend with all his strength and couldn't find any opportunity to counterattack. After completely erupting with his combat strength, Shao Chun gained the upper hand. Seeing this scene, Su Jin's expression changed drastically. Although she was willful, her love for Feng Lingye was real. Seeing Feng Lingye gradually falling into a disadvantage, Su Jin felt anxious. She gritted her teeth, and the storage ring in her hand flashed with light. Wielding her sword, she directly attacked Shao Chun from behind. Worried about Feng Lingye's safety, Su Jin couldn't care about anything else. She could only attack Shao Chun. Feeling Su Jin's aura rapidly approaching, the two people in the fierce battle also noticed this scene. A cold glint flashed through Shao Chun's eyes. He didn't have a good impression of Su Jin. The reason why things had turned out this way was almost entirely because of Su Jin. It was her willfulness that led to Feng Lingye's foolish decision. There was no need to show mercy. Shao Chun was not the kind of person who pretended to be aloof and thought that he would show mercy to women. The world of warriors was cruel to begin with. Sometimes, women were more dangerous than men. Therefore, in Shao Chun's eyes, there was no distinction between men and women. There were only enemies and friends. Since he was an enemy, he naturally would not show mercy regardless of whether he was a man or a woman. He swept his sword and forced Feng Lingye to retreat. Then, he turned around and pointed his finger at the charging Su Jin. The Chun Jun sword finger was instantly displayed. The sword flashed and went straight for Su Jin. Seeing that Shao Chun didn't hold back, the retreating Feng Lingye's eyes immediately turned red. He shouted, "Jin, retreat." Facing Shao Chun, Su Jin definitely had no chance of winning. If Shao Chun wanted to kill Su Jin, it definitely wouldn't be difficult. Facing Feng Lingye's angry shout, Su Jin realized the danger. Seeing that the sword was rapidly approaching, Su Jin didn't have time to do anything. She could only prioritize avoiding her vitals. But in the end, the Chun Jun sword finger still penetrated Su Jin's shoulder. Su Jin wasn't seriously injured in one blow, but she was still sent flying. Feng Lingye's eyes had already turned blood red as he watched Su Jin being injured and forcefully stopping herself. It was not difficult to see how deep his love for Su Jin was from the fact that he was willing to agree to Su Jin's unreasonable demands. Because of this love, Feng Lingye was completely enraged when he saw that Su Jin was injured. It was as if he had turned into a ferocious beast that wanted to devour people. His blood-red eyes stared at Xiao Chun as he shouted word by word. "Xiao Chun, if you dare to hurt Jin, I'll fight it out with you." Su Jin was undoubtedly Feng Lingye's reverse scale. Now that Su Jin was injured, Feng Lingye was completely enraged. As soon as he finished speaking, Feng Lingye held the long saber in his hands. At the same time, a red light bloomed from the long saber. Along with the rise of the red light, the long saber could be seen fusing into Feng Lingye's flesh. It was as if the two had become one. Unity of man and weapon. Feng Lingye shouted in a low voice. Along with his shout, the aura on his body began to soar. It went from the Earth Mirror Realm to the Sky Realm's initial stage. Secret technique. He had directly used a secret technique. The unity of man and weapon was the strongest secret technique in the Myriad Weapon Pavilion. It allowed the user to become one with their weapon and burst out with unimaginable power. It was a very powerful secret technique. If one wanted to learn this secret technique, only weapon refiners could do it. Ordinary cultivators couldn't achieve the unity of man and weapon. Feeling the terrifying aura coming from Feng Lingye, Xiao Chun shouted expressionlessly, "Dragon Transformation." He had changed the name of the Beast Transformation secret technique. Because he had refined Long Qing's blood essence, Xiao Chun directly changed the name of the Beast Transformation secret technique to Dragon Transformation. Along with his voice, Xiao Chen's aura began to soar. Soon, he reached the Sky Realm's initial stage, just like Feng Lingye. Even a secret technique had been used. It could be seen that Xiao Chun and Feng Lingye were thoroughly enraged. Feng Lingye was injured because of Su Jin, while Xiao Chun was injured because of the Su family's actions and Feng Lingye's inability to distinguish right from wrong. Attacking at the same time, under the enhancement of the secret technique, the battle strength of the two had risen to a terrifying level. The Scarlet Edge sword stabbed out, and the sword aura of the Great Perfection realm suddenly erupted. Facing Xiao Chen's sword, Feng Lingye quickly condensed a fiery red long saber in his hand, and with a slash, the saber aura exploded. Sword chi and saber chi fiercely collided in the air. Cracks quickly appeared on the ground. Feng Lingye's eyes were bloodshot as he coldly shouted, "Xiao Chun, you shouldn't have attacked Jin. She's only a woman. How could you attack her so mercilessly?" "A woman? Feng Lingye, isn't this woman the one who caused everything today? Because of her willful and rash actions, she caused the deaths of hundreds of innocent people. She created the domineering personality of the Su family. And you, despite knowing all of this, still allowed her to do as she pleased. Feng Lingye, if Su Jin was willful and rash, then you're extremely stupid." Facing Feng Lingye's cold shout, Xiao Chun coldly replied. After saying that, Xiao Chun slowly raised his left hand. With a finger, he used the Tai sword finger. 10th update. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations, begging for rewards. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.